Chapter 1723. Chapter 1723. Betrayal. Old dog, we're doomed to end the feud between us today. Ningyu clenched his fists, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. Di Xiao had destroyed his family, and he had to avenge it. At this moment, Ningyu even wanted to use the Qilin lifeblood. The Qilin lifeblood was comparable to the true dragon lifeblood, and it contained extremely terrifying energy. With Ningyu's current cultivation, he had no chance of winning even against a half-saint, let alone an early-stage saint like Di Xiao. However, since the enemy had already said so much, if they were to retreat blindly, they would be completely suppressed by the other party in terms of momentum. Therefore, Ningyu secretly made up his mind. Today, even if he had to use the Qilin lifeblood and risk the risk of being devoured, he would let Di Xiao know who he could and could not offend. Ha ha ha! Di Xiao seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He threw his head back and laughed wildly, and then said in a sinister tone, "A mere early-stage Sky Supreme trash wants to end things with me? You're overestimating yourself." As soon as he said the word strength, Di Xiao's figure flashed, and he rushed towards Ningyu. Di Xiao's intention was clear. He wanted to severely injure Ningyu, and let Ningyu know what cruelty was. Seeing Di Xiao approaching him, Ningyu did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly separated a wisp of his soul power into his storage ring, and wanted to use the Qilin lifeblood. "Come back!" However, before Ningyu could use the Qilin lifeblood, the other martial artist who came out with Di Xiao said in a deep voice, "Stay aside, and don't speak without my permission." Swish! Di Xiao had originally wanted to severely injure Ningyu, but the sudden shout in his ear made him not dare to have the slightest bit of hesitation. He immediately turned around and returned to the back of another warrior. The sudden change not only surprised Ningyu, but even the human demon was a little shocked. Moving his eyes, the human demon's eyes fell on the other martial artist. Middle stage saint? The human demon's perception was much stronger than Ningyu's. Ningyu deduced that the warrior in front of Emperor Shao was at the early stage of Saint Realm, but the human devil deduced that the warrior was at the middle stage of Saint Realm. Even though he knew that the other party was a mid-stage saint, the human demon did not show any fear. There was no other reason. The other party was only at the Saint Intermediate stage, and had not reached the peak of the Saint Intermediate stage. In other words, a single human demon could easily deal with several martial artists of this level. "Hee, an esteemed guest has arrived. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." The warrior in front of Emperor Shao smiled at the human devil and said, "Let me introduce myself, my name is He Jiming. I don't care if you're He Jiming or Zhou Jiming. I only have one request today." The human demon didn't give He Jiming any face. He raised his right hand, pointed at Di Xiao and said, "Take his life." What? The human demon's words made He Jiming's face darken. He Jiming thought that speaking to the human devil in this tone was already giving the human devil enough face. Who would have thought that the human demon would not know when to back down and would actually want to kill Di Xiao in front of him? No matter what, Di Xiao was the current palace lord of Emperor God Palace, and his talent was extremely high. One of the reasons he came down from a higher plane this time was because of Di Xiao. Now that the human demon wanted to kill Di Xiao, how could He Jiming tolerate it? "I'm giving you face, but you don't want it." He Jiming was thoroughly enraged. The anger on his face burst out unabashedly. "Sun Deshun, what are you waiting for? I order you to act now and take down this arrogant bastard." He Jiming stared at Sun Deshun and said coldly. He Jiming was no fool. On the contrary, being sent down from a higher plane, He Jiming was very, very smart, and could be said to be extraordinarily intelligent. Because the human demon had slightly concealed his aura, He Jiming didn't know what the human demon's cultivation was. To be on the safe side, He Jiming would definitely let Sun Deshun test the human demon's strength first before deciding whether or not to suppress the human demon. This, hearing He Jiming's order, Sun Deshun's entire face turned bitter. It's better to make enemies than to resolve them. In my opinion, we should all sit down and have a good talk, lest both sides suffer. Biting his lip, Sun Deshun said something that greatly angered He Jiming. The human demon was about to kill Di Shao, and you actually said something like, "It's better to make enemies than to resolve them." This was simply boosting the other's morale and diminishing your own prestige. He Jiming was especially furious. In fact, Sun Deshun was very helpless, extremely helpless. He Jiming didn't know, but his heart was as clear as a mirror. The control of his body no longer belonged to him. Not long ago, when he was chasing after the human demon with Di Tianming, he was already controlled by the human demon. It could be said that if the human demon wanted him dead by midnight, he would definitely not live past midnight. Going against the human demon for He Jiming? Sun Deshun wasn't that stupid. In fact, Sun Deshun even made a simple analysis of the current situation. In terms of raw strength, He Jiming wasn't the human demon's match. Even if all the sages from the higher planes joined forces, they still might not be the human demon's match. Under this premise, even if the human demon wanted him to attack He Jiming, he would do it without hesitation. Sun Deshun, I'll give you one last chance. Taking a deep breath, He Jiming tried his best to calm himself down. The more critical the moment, the less flustered he was. This was the main reason He Jiming was sent down. Kill him, and I'll pretend today's matter never happened. Otherwise, I'll hand you over to the disciplinary hall. He Jiming pointed at the human demon and said coldly, "This is your last chance. I hope you don't do anything stupid. Kill Di Shao." Before Sun Deshun could answer He Jiming, the human demon's words came out. "Xiao." As soon as the human demon's voice fell, Sun Deshun dashed towards Di Shao without another word. Even though Di Shao was behind He Jiming, and killing Di Shao required a direct confrontation with He Jiming, Sun Deshun didn't hesitate. Because there were only two paths in front of Sun Deshun. If he killed Di Shao, he had a chance of survival. If he didn't kill Di Shao, he would die without a doubt. One thought gave him a chance to live, the other a chance to die. Even a fool would know what to choose. "You've disappointed me too much." Looking at Sun Deshun's foolish choice, He Jiming's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. This look of disappointment only appeared in He Jiming's eyes for a second, and it disappeared after a second. "Leave him to me." Just as He Jiming was about to kill Sun Deshun himself, Di Shao took a step forward and said, "Let me get rid of this scum of the sect." "All right." He Jiming originally wanted to kill Sun Deshun himself, but after hearing Di Zhao's words, he nodded lightly and took a few steps back. If Di Shao could kill Sun Deshun himself, then even if he went to a higher plane, he wouldn't be marginalized. It was equivalent to having an umbrella of protection. Chapter 1724. Chapter 1724. Chapter 1724 Standpoint Kill. After getting He Jiming's approval, Di Zhao's eyes lit up with excitement. Although he had become a sage, Di Shao knew very well that his position in the hearts of He Jiming and the others was not high. If he could kill Sun Deshun, he would be able to prove himself. He would be able to prove that he was worthy of their attention. With a low growl, Di Shao charged forward instead of retreating. In the blink of an eye, he was already far away. In the first move, Di Shao did not hold back. A terrifying amount of primordial qi gathered on his fist, which fiercely collided with Sun Deshun's fist. Bang! The two fists collided. A crisp sound rang out and spread out in all directions. Whoosh! Whoosh! After one move, the two figures retreated rapidly. Di Shao is so strong. The first exchange between Sun Deshun and Di Shao had completely overturned Ning Yu's knowledge. From Ning Yu's point of view, Di Shao had just reached the early stage of the Saint Realm, so he was definitely no match for Sun Deshun. However, it seemed that Di Shao and Sun Deshun were evenly matched. This discovery almost made Ningyu cry out. If Di Shao had been an ordinary early-stage Saint Realm warrior, Ningyu might have been able to contend with him after activating his Qilin blood. Who would have thought that Di Shao, an early-stage Sage Realm warrior, could be on par with Sun Deshan, who was at the peak of the early-stage Sage Realm? This was rather awkward. No matter how confident Ningyu was in himself and in his Qilin blood, he knew that he was no match for Sun Deshan. Even if he used his Qilin origin blood, it was impossible for him to defeat Sun Deshan. Therefore, now that Di Shao and Sun Deshan were evenly matched, Ningyu was shocked speechless. This Di Shao is indeed very strong. He can actually fight evenly with Sun Deshan, who only has 50% of his strength. His martial arts talent is just SOSO. As if sensing the shock in Ningyu's voice, the human demon nodded, but no matter how strong he is destined to be killed today. I can't believe it. Hearing the human demon's words, Ningyu cursed. The worry in his heart lessened a little. In the previous exchange, Ningyu knew that Di Shao had used his full strength. Di Shao had used his full strength, while Sun Deshan had only used 50% of his strength. It seemed that Di Shao was not as strong as he had imagined. Sun Deshan, between you and Di Shao, only one can live. The human demon didn't notice the change in Ningyu's expression. He said in a clear voice, "Him or you, it's your choice." Boom. The human demon's words exploded in Sun Deshan's ears like a bomb. Die. Sun Deshan knew that he had not used his full strength in the first move, which had angered the human demon. If he lost the human demon's trust, then his little life would come to an end. Taking a deep breath, Sun Deshan decided to launch a powerful attack and kill Di Shao with a single strike. Sun Deshan had thought of a way out for himself. After killing Di Shao with a single strike, he returned to the human demon's side before He Jiming and the other saints could react. This was the only way he could keep his life. Otherwise, even if he killed Di Shao, He Jiming and the other saints were bound to kill him. Cold words came out of Sun Deshan's mouth. In the next instant, Sun Deshan tore through the void and dove in. 1. The moment Sun Deshan's foot entered the void, he appeared in front of Di Shao. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Sun Deshan threw a punch that brought along a raging gale of Yuan Qi, right at Di Shao's heart. Since he had decided to kill Di Shao, Sun Deshan would not hold back. Killing Di Shao with a single strike was Sun Deshan's only chance of survival. Not good. Di Shao did not expect Sun Deshan to be so terrifying. His first thought was not to fight Sun Deshan head-on, but to dodge to the side. But Di Shao had obviously underestimated Sun Deshan. In order to survive, Sun Deshan had used all his strength. The speed of Sun Deshan's punch was twice as fast as usual. Bang! Even though Di Shao tried his best to dodge, he could not avoid Sun Deshan's punch. The iron-like fist landed on Di Shao's body with no way to dodge. Fortunately, Di Shao reacted in time and moved his body slightly to the side, which made Sun Deshan's fist only hit on his chest, instead of his heart. Otherwise, Sun Deshan's punch would have been enough to make Di Shao go home and plant sweet potatoes. Even so, Di Shao also tasted the pain. Sun Deshan's fist landed on Di Shao's chest, and several of his ribs were broken. Poochie! Di Shao's breath dropped from the early-stage Sage Realm to the freezing point. I can't let Di Shao live. Although Di Shao was seriously injured, he was not dead. As long as Di Shao was alive, Sun Deshan would feel very uneasy. Looking back at Human Demon's cold face, Sun Deshan gritted his teeth and decided to follow up. He must eliminate Di Shao. Crash! However, before Sun Deshan could reach Di Shao, the void around him suddenly split open, and several figures rushed out. Damn it! The sudden appearance of several figures made Sun Deshan's face turn extremely ugly. Sun Deshan knew these warriors. They were all warriors who had descended from a higher plane with him. Although Sun Deshan's strength was enough to rank in the top 2 among this batch of Sage Realm warriors, he still felt his scalp go numb. Sun Deshun was not afraid of facing one alone. But facing so many people at the same time, even Sun Deshun felt that it was very difficult. Come back. At this time, Human Demon waved his hand, indicating for Sun Deshun to come back first. Good, good, good. Human Demon's words were even more pleasant to Sun Deshun's ears than the sound of nature. Sun Deshun hurriedly turned around and quickly returned to Human Demon's side. The sudden appearance of more than a dozen sages instantly broke the balance of the situation. On Divine Emperor Palace's side, He Jiming and more than a dozen sages, plus Di Shao with broken ribs, formed an extremely terrifying force. On Human Demon's side, other than Human Demon himself, there were only Sun Deshun and Ningyu. As for Di Tianming and Zhang Kejuan, their faces were very ugly at the moment. They wanted to stand on the same side as Divine Emperor Palace, but they did not dare to act rashly. One had to know that they were very close to Human Demon. If they angered him, they would definitely not have a good ending. If Human Demon behaved a little closer to them, it would be terrible. You too, come here. For Di Tianming and Zhang Kejuan, whatever they feared had come true. Hearing Human Demons in different words, they almost cried out loud. In the current situation, even ghosts knew that He Jiming had the absolute upper hand. Now that Human Demon had dragged them into the water, he really had ulterior motives. Resist. Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. If they were tied to Human Demon, they would definitely be finished. Therefore, Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming immediately decided to cut off relations with Human Demon. Humph. We are from the demonic spirit realm Zhang family. This time, we came mainly to ally with Divine Emperor Palace. Where did you clowns come from? How dare you behave so atrociously here? Chapter 1725. Devouring Vortex. Zhang Kejuan concluded. As long as he and the Human Demon were clear, He Jiming would definitely be on his side. The Human Demon's cultivation was at the peak of the mid-stage Saint Realm. Coupled with Sun Deshun, who was at the peak of the early stage Saint Realm, his strength was terrifying. He Jiming and a dozen early stage Saint Realm experts alone might not be a match for the Human Demon and the others. At this time, if Di Tianming helped to restrain Sun Deshun, then He Jiming and a dozen early-stage Saint Realm experts would have a high chance of killing the Human Demon. Therefore, Zhang Kejuan concluded that He Jiming would definitely be on his side. When we fight later, you only have one task. The Human Demon's expression was indifferent. Without even looking at Zhang Kejuan, he directly said to Ningyu, I don't care what method you use. In short, just take his life. Understood. Ningyu nodded heavily. Ningyu was very clear about his own strength. Under the premise that he didn't use his Qilin origin blood, he could only contend with Zhang Kejuan among the martial artists in this area. Now that the Human Demon handed Zhang Kejuan to him, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Kill. The Human Demon didn't waste any time. After hastily instructing Ningyu, he dashed toward Di Tianming at high speed. Boom! Displaying the aura of a peak mid-stage Saint Realm expert, the Human Demon used his full strength in his first move to directly kill Di Tianming. Zhang Chang, save me! Seeing that he was the Human Demon's first target, Di Tianming retreated while shouting for help. Buzz! As soon as Zhang Chang's cry for help sounded, the void trembled, and Zhang Chang appeared out of thin air. Bang! As soon as he appeared, Zhang Chang clenched his right hand into a fist and collided with the Human Demon's. The two fists collided and a crisp sound rang out. Then, two figures retreated in a straight line, one after the other. What? This Zhang Chang's strength is so terrifying. No wonder that half-saint brat dared to be so arrogant. It turns out that he has something to rely on. The first exchange between Zhang Chang and the Human Demon caused the surrounding saints to exclaim. The Human Demon was at the peak of the Sage Intermediate stage. The fact that Zhang Chang could fight evenly with the human demon was enough to show how powerful he was. Without using the trump card given to me by the sect, it is impossible for me to be a match for the two of them. He Jiming's eyes were fixed on human demon and Zhang Chang. His heart was in turmoil. In the beginning, He Jiming had roughly estimated the human demon's battle prowess. According to He Jiming's speculations, the human demon's strength should be on par with his. But now, after seeing the fight between the two, He Jiming knew that he was wrong, very wrong. Under normal circumstances, the two of them would not be a match for the human devil. However, He Jiming was not particularly worried. He came from a higher plane and had a trump card left behind for him by his sect. Once he used his trump card, He Jiming believed that the human demon was no match for him. Let the two of them fight each other first. When their strength is almost exhausted, I will come out to clean up the mess. He Jiming's lips curled into a smile as he swept his gaze across the surrounding Saint Martialists. He Jiming came from a higher plane. He didn't care about the devil spirit realm, the Zhang family, the Bai family, or the Yin family. In He Jiming's heart, apart from the people of Emperor God Palace, everyone was an enemy. Ha ha ha! The fight between human demon and Zhang Chang did not affect Zhang Kejuan. Instead, Zhang Kejuan threw his head back and laughed. Your umbrella is gone. Let's see if you can survive this. As soon as the word die fell, Zhang Kejuan quickly rushed out. Terrifying yuan qi fluctuations erupted from his body as he fiercely charged at Ningyu. Zhang Kejuan was most afraid of human demon. Now that human demon was entangled by Zhang Chang, Zhang Kejuan naturally had no scruples. Zhang Chang entangled human demon while Di Tianming stared at Sun Deshun. On the other side, He Jiming chose to bide his time. Everything was extremely beneficial to Zhang Kejuan. Zhang Kejuan had made up his mind to kill Ningyu. He must not give Ningyu a chance to live. Black Dragon Sword. Ningyu did not waste time talking to Zhang Kejuan. He directly took out the Black Dragon Sword, injected the yuan qi in his sea of consciousness, and slashed out. Qi. A waist-thick sword light peeled off from the Black Dragon Sword, drew a beautiful arc in the air, and chopped straight towards Zhang Kejuan. Insignificant skill. Because of his previous experience with Ningyu, Zhang Kejuan learned to be smart this time. On the surface, Zhang Kejuan showed a sloppy look, as if he did not take Ningyu seriously at all. But in reality, that was not the case. This time, Zhang Kejuan focused 120%. This was because Zhang Kejuan knew that whether or not he could reach an agreement with He Jiming and the others, his fight with Ningyu would play a key role. As long as he could easily kill Ningyu, He Jiming would definitely think highly of him and the Devil Spirit Realm's Zhang family. Therefore, Zhang Kejuan used his trump card as soon as he made his move. Buzz. Zhang Kejuan suddenly stopped in midair and made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Then, a small vortex suddenly appeared. After the small vortex appeared, a terrifying devouring power burst out from the vortex. The moment the Black Dragon Sword light that Ningyu slashed out came into contact with the vortex, it was devoured by the devouring power that erupted from the vortex. What? This change obviously caused Ningyu to be slightly surprised. The might of the Black Dragon Sword light was something that even a pinnacle Sky Supreme wouldn't dare to face head-on. But now, Zhang Kejuan had only used a vortex to block the Black Dragon Sword light. Ningyu's face was dark. He wasn't sure if this was Zhang Kejuan's strongest trump card. If it was, then there was a chance that he could use the demonic lotus flame to kill Zhang Kejuan. If this wasn't Zhang Kejuan's strongest trump card, then it would bode ill for him today. Again, Ningyu gritted his teeth and injected the yuan qi in his body into the Black Dragon Sword again, slashing out several more sword lights. Whoosh! The overwhelming sword lights rushed out and slashed at Zhang Kejuan from all directions. Ha ha ha! You want to get close to me with these useless sword lights? What a fool's dream! Zhang Kejuan's unbridled laughter resounded in the area. To Zhang Kejuan, using this trump card to deal with Ning Yu was probably the wisest decision he had made recently. Zhang Kejuan had many trump cards, and any one of them could erupt with extremely powerful power. However, the other trump cards were all one-time attack. Only this trump card was the devouring vortex. No matter how dense the yuan qi in Ning Yu's body was, or how many sword lights he executed, it was of no use against the devouring vortex. Demonic Lotus Flame. Hearing Zhang Kejuan's unbridled laughter, Ning Yu decided to use the demonic lotus flame. Through the black dragon sword lights, Ning Yu roughly determined the devouring vortex's endurance. It would be difficult to use the sword lights or soul power to dissipate the devouring vortex. Chapter 1726. Almost. Ning Yu's goal was to kill Zhang Kejuan. Therefore, Ning Yu would not give up on the chance to destroy the devouring whirlpool. With the black dragon sword in hand, Ning Yu charged forward. As he advanced, Ning Yu wrapped the demonic lotus flame around the black dragon sword, hoping to succeed in one try. Have you lost your mind? Seeing Ning Yu's actions, Zhang Kejuan's lips curled up. He said darkly, "Since you want to give me the flying sword, it would be impolite of me to refuse." Even a fool could tell that Ning Yu wanted to use the black dragon sword to attack the devouring whirlpool. Zhang Kejuan was very confident in the devouring whirlpool's endurance. A mere black dragon sword would definitely not be a threat to the devouring whirlpool. "I'll take the flying sword first, then I'll kill you." Seeing Ning Yu approaching the devouring whirlpool, Zhang Kejuan was a little excited. What? All of a sudden, Zhang Kejuan seemed to have discovered something horrifying, and he immediately shouted, "Xiao!" As Ning Yu approached the devouring whirlpool, he suddenly waved the black dragon sword in his hand. In an instant, a flame rushed out of the black dragon's sword and entered the devouring whirlpool. Chi. The devouring whirlpool could block the sword light and soul power, but it could not block the exotic flame. Under the attack of the demonic lotus flame, the devouring whirlpool was completely destroyed in an instant. "Ah! I want you dead!" Seeing the devouring whirlpool destroyed, Zhang Kejuan shouted crazily, wanting to use his second trump card. However, how could Ning Yu give Zhang Kejuan the chance to use his second trump card? Zhang Kejuan had just waved his hands when Ning Yu's sword pierced into Zhang Kejuan's chest. Poochie! A tearing pain came from his chest, causing Zhang Kejuan to spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura was rapidly declining. Not good! Originally, Zhang Chang was fighting with the human demon, and the battle between the two sides had reached a white-hot point. However, when Zhang Chang saw Zhang Kejuan vomiting blood after being punched by Ning Yu, he immediately changed his expression and wanted to help. "You dare to be distracted while fighting me? You are simply seeking death." How could the human demon miss such a rare opportunity? Almost at the moment when Zhang Chang was distracted, the human devil suddenly rushed out and punched towards Zhang Chang's head with a violent yuan qi wind. Hit the snake where it hurts. Since there was such a good opportunity, the human demon would not hold back. As long as this punch could hit Zhang Chang's head, even if Zhang Chang didn't die, his combat effectiveness would drop several times. This was the result that the human demon wanted. Damn it! Zhang Chang knew very well that if he continued to stubbornly help Zhang Kejuan, the human demon would seize the opportunity to injure him. Once he was seriously injured by the human devil, he would definitely die in the following confrontation. For the sake of survival, Zhang Chang cursed inwardly. Soon after, he shouted at Di Tianming, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go help Zhang Kejuan. If anything happens to Zhang Kejuan, you can forget about living." Yes. Hearing Zhang Chang's words, Di Tianming didn't dare tarry. He rushed out, wanting to save Zhang Kejuan before Ning Yu killed him. In truth, Di Tianming was extremely unwilling. Although Di Tianming hadn't fought with Sun Deshun, Sun Deshun's attention was completely on him. If he dared to divert his attention to help Zhang Kejuan, he would definitely be ambushed by Sun Deshun. Di Tianming and Sun Deshun were both at the peak of the primary sage realm, so they were evenly matched in a head-on fight. If one of them ambushed the other would definitely be heavily injured. However, Di Tianming had no other choice. Zhang Kejuan was a quasi-war god of the Zhang clan in the devil spirit realm. His status was much higher than Di Tianming's. If anything happened to Zhang Kejuan, Di Tianming wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Therefore, even at the risk of being heavily injured, Di Tianming still rushed towards Ningyu without hesitation. Whoosh! As expected. As soon as Di Tianming rushed out, Sun Deshun followed closely behind. Before the battle between the demon and Zhang Chang, he had already given Sun Deshun an order. Stop Di Tianming. Therefore, when he saw Di Tianming make a move, Sun Deshun also rushed out without hesitation. He had to stop Di Tianming. Relatively speaking, Sun Deshun faced much more pressure than Di Tianming. If Di Tianming couldn't stop Ningyu, then Ningyu would just kill Zhang Kejuan. Di Tianming wouldn't die immediately. If Sun Deshun couldn't stop Di Tianming, then the demon would kill him immediately. Pressure. Sun Deshun and Di Tianming weren't on the same level at all. I'm the quasi-wargod of the Zhang clan. If you dare to kill me, you'll become the enemy of the entire Zhang clan. Seeing that Ningyu was about to reach him, Zhang Kejuan couldn't help but use the Zhang clan to intimidate Ningyu. Unfortunately, Ningyu was an immortal spirit realm cultivator. Even if he did, he wouldn't have held back, not to mention that he didn't know how powerful the Zhang family was. Even if he spared Zhang Kejuan's life, Zhang Kejuan would definitely become the enemy of Ningyu again after he regrouped. Ningyu saw this clearly. Therefore, he didn't show any mercy. He was determined to kill Zhang Kejuan in one move. Go help him. In front of the main entrance of Emperor God Palace, He Jiming frowned slightly and nodded to the early stage sage beside him. After much consideration, He Jiming still felt that he should help Zhang Kejuan. He Jiming saved Zhang Kejuan not because he was afraid of the Zhang clan in the demonic spirit realm, but because he wanted to get some benefits from the Zhang clan. Of course, the key to getting benefits was Zhang Kejuan. Therefore, Zhang Kejuan couldn't die. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. He Jiming's voice was heard. The four sage early-stage martial artists beside him rushed out and rushed towards Ningyu from four directions. Retreat. Although Ningyu wanted to kill Zhang Kejuan, he immediately decided to let Zhang Kejuan go when he sensed that there were four initial sage realm experts rushing towards him. He immediately retreated. Where there's life, there's hope. If even the mountain was gone, there would really be no firewood to burn. Whoosh! Di Tianming took a deep breath when he saw the martial artists of Emperor Divine Palace intervening. He turned around and fought with Sun Deshun in a hurry. Since the Emperor Palace had sent four sages, Zhang Kejuan's life was no longer in danger. Since Zhang Kejuan's life was no longer in danger, Di Tianming naturally had to deal with Sun Deshun. We'll fight later. Human Demon had been paying attention to what was happening on Ningyu's side. When the four sages from Emperor God Palace appeared, Human Demon snorted and forced Zhang Chang to retreat. Then, he flew out and protected Ningyu behind him. Human Demon's sudden retreat made Zhang Chang look as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. Because he was worried about Zhang Kejuan, Zhang Chang was suppressed by Human Demon. Now that Human Demon had retreated, the pressure on Zhang Chang instantly disappeared and he became relaxed. We can deal with him together. At this time. Chapter 1727. Chapter 1727. Chapter 1727. Lure the tiger away from the mountain, all right. Hearing He Jiming's words, Zhang Chang responded almost without thinking, let's join forces and kill this arrogant guy. Zhang Chang was annoyed by the Human Demon. To be honest, Zhang Chang did not think that he was weaker than the human devil in terms of raw strength. However, he needed to care about Zhang Kejuan's life, so the human demon seized this opportunity. Now that He Jiming came forward to help, Zhang Chang had already sentenced human devil to death in his heart. Go! Exchanging glances, He Jiming and Zhang Chang dashed out at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. You are responsible for protecting Ningyu. If anything happens to Ningyu, I will hold you accountable. Seeing He Jiming and Zhang Chang charging at him, the human demon didn't respond immediately. Instead, he ordered Sun Deshun. The human demon played a key role in Ningyu's visit to the Emperor Divine Palace. No matter what, the human demon would never let Ningyu be in danger. As long as I am alive, I will never let Ningyu be threatened. Sun Deshun nodded heavily, revealing a determined look. Sun Deshun's life was in the hands of the human demon. If he didn't make his stance clear now, the human demon would probably kill him right away to prevent any future troubles. You overestimate yourself. Seeing the human demon's arrogance, Zhang Chang revealed a ferocious gaze and said viciously, "This day next year will be your death anniversary. Don't talk nonsense with him. Attack with everything you have." He Jiming saw it more clearly than Zhang Chang. As an expert from a high-level plane, He Jiming's horizons were much higher than Zhang Chang's. Since the human demon dared to be so arrogant, it meant that he definitely had a trump card to deal with it. At this moment, the only way was to strike with all his strength and deal a fatal blow to the human demon before he used his trump card. Otherwise, when the human demon used his trump card, the situation would become even more confusing. However, even though He Jiming knew that the human demon would use his trump card, he did not reveal it himself. He Jiming had come down from a high-level plane with a very important mission on his shoulders. If he used his trump card now, then the mission would definitely fail. Between the quest and killing the homicidal demon, He Jiming chose the quest without hesitation, giving up the chance to kill the homicidal demon in one strike. Insignificant skill. How could human demon not know that Zhang Chang and He Jiming would go all out? With a flick of his wrist, he quickly took out the last drop of Qilin blood and swallowed it in front of everyone. What? Qilin blood? As soon as the human demon took out the Qilin origin blood, He Jiming and Zhang Chang's expressions changed. He Jiming came from a higher plane, while Zhang Chang was a peak expert in the devil spirit realm. The two of them naturally knew what a terrifying thing a Qilin's life blood was. Now that the human devil had taken out the Qilin's natal blood, the two of them immediately decided to retreat and avoid the brunt of the attack. Buzz. The facts proved that He Jiming and Zhang Chang's choice was right. As soon as the Qilin blood entered the human devil's mouth, the human devil used a secret art to fuse it into his body. Half of the Qilin origin blood fiercely suppressed the energy seal in the human devil's body, while the other half constantly replenished the human devil's meridians. In the next instant, an extremely terrifying aura surged from the human devil's body. Late-stage saint. At this moment, the human devil's cultivation broke through to the late-stage saint realm. The human devil didn't let the excitement of the breakthrough get to his head. Instead, he was extremely calm. The human devil knew very well that the reason he could use the Qilin origin blood to break through the barrier and restore his cultivation to the late-stage saint realm was all because of his special physique. After all, in his previous life, the human devil's cultivation had far surpassed that of a saint. At the same time, the human devil knew very well that due to the powerful suppression of the energy seal, he couldn't maintain his late-stage saint cultivation for too long. His preliminary estimate was that after an hour, his cultivation would drop sharply. At that time, let alone He Jiming and Zhang Chang, even a warrior at the early stage of the sage realm could defeat the human devil. The situation was very grim to kill or subdue He Jiming and the others in an hour. Because He Jiming, Zhang Chang, and even Di Shao and Zhang Kejuan had retreated back into the Emperor Divine Palace. Moreover, in order to resist the human devil's attack, He Jiming didn't hesitate to activate the palace protecting formation. Swish! The human devil didn't waste even a second. After his cultivation recovered to the late-stage Saint realm, he immediately moved and punched the palace protecting formation of the Emperor Divine Palace. Bang! The huge rebound force directly bounced the human devil back. On the other hand, the palace protecting formation of the Emperor Divine Palace didn't move at all. Ha ha ha, so what if you used the Qilin origin blood? You still can't break the palace protecting formation. Standing within the palace protection formation, He Jiming's lips curled into an arc as he said sinisterly, "When the power of your Qilin origin blood weakens, I'll bring everyone out to skin you alive. Senior human devil, why don't we avoid it first?" Ningyu knew that the human devil must be under some kind of great pressure after swallowing the Qilin origin blood. Once the pressure passed, the human devil's cultivation would drop to the freezing point. Instead of stubbornly attacking the palace protecting formation of the Emperor Divine Palace, it was better to retreat to the Emperor City and occupy an advantageous position there before fighting with He Jiming and the others. Retreat. The human devil pondered for a moment and felt that Ningyu's proposal was not bad. To reach the Emperor Palace, they had to pass through the Emperor City. Similarly, to leave the Emperor Palace, they also had to pass through the Emperor City. Therefore, as long as Ningyu could occupy the Emperor City, they could stop He Jiming and the others from leaving and cut off their contact with the outside world. Under such circumstances, He Jiming and Zhang Chang would definitely send people to break out. The moment they broke out would be the best time for Ningyu and the human devil. "Senior, we can do this first." Although Ningyu proposed to retreat to the Emperor City, Ningyu quietly whispered a few words to the human devil during the retreat. The human devil's eyes lit up. He immediately used the clone technique to abandon 2 of his clones and quietly hid in the void. Under the instruction of the human devil, Sun Deshun and the 2 clones rushed to the Emperor City without stopping. The human devil only gave Sun Deshun one task: occupy the Emperor City and delay as much time as possible. In order to survive, Sun Deshun had no choice but to do as the human devil said. Are they really going to attack the Emperor City? Di Tianming's face darkened when he saw the human devil and the others quietly leaving. There were at least a few Sage Realm overlords of the Zhang family in the Emperor City. If the human devil took Sun Deshun to attack the Emperor City, the Zhang family's overlords would definitely die. Chapter 1728. Chapter 1728. The key. Do you know when the effect of the Qilin life blood will weaken? He Jiming stared at Di Tianming and asked, "If we send someone to Emperor City, what should we do if the human demon ambushes us there?" Well, He Jiming's words made Di Tianming's mouth slightly open. He was a bit speechless. In fact, Di Tianming also knew that He Jiming's worries were not unreasonable. They were all watching when the human demon swallowed the Qilin life blood. A drop of Qilin life blood could raise the cultivation of the human demon from the mid-stage to the late stage in a short period of time. Such a terrifying speed of improvement made all of them shudder. If they rashly went to Emperor City at this time, it was very likely that they would be ambushed by the human demon. We still have to go to Emperor City, but not now. He Jiming's attitude softened a little when he saw Zhang Chang's pale face. I will go with you in half an hour to Emperor City. No problem. Zhang Chang nodded, indicating that there was no problem. He Jiming was only worried about when the aura of the human demon would decline, but Zhang Chang had to worry about the safety of the Zhang clan warriors in Emperor City. In order to reach an agreement with Emperor Palace, they brought a lot of sages with them to go to Emperor Palace. It was not good news for the Zhang clan that the human demon retreated to Emperor City at this time. Senior human demon, how long can your late-stage sage cultivation last? Ningyu asked quietly in the void. Sun Deshun went to Emperor City with his 2 avatars, while Ning Yu and the human demon hid in the void. With the help of the human demon, Ning Yu was not worried about being discovered by He Jiming and the others. After all, the human demon was a person from a higher plane. Although he was suppressed by the energy seal, he was still very experienced in hiding his aura. 1 hour. The human demon did not hide it from Ningyu. He stretched out a finger and said, "My cultivation will drop to the freezing point in an hour, so we only have 1 hour left." Ningyu's face became a bit solemn when he heard the human demon's words. An hour was not short, but it was not long either. The key point was not the human demon, but He Jiming's group. As long as He Jiming and Zhang Chang left the Emperor Palace within an hour, Ningyu would have the opportunity to take control of the Emperor Palace. Luring the tiger away from the mountain. This move was called luring the tiger away from the mountain. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the void, Ningyu and human demon were very nervous, and so were He Jiming and Zhang Chang. Both sides were betting. Go. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. He Jiming first unleashed his perception and probed the surroundings for a while. Then, with a wave of his hand, he was the first to fly into the distance. Voila! Seeing He Jiming leave, Zhang Chang and 4 or 5 early-stage Sage Realm cultivators moved quickly and followed closely behind him. As for Di Tianming, Zhang Kejuan, Di Shao, and the rest of the early-stage Saint Realm warriors, they chose to stay in the Emperor Divine Palace. Prepare for both. After all, He Jiming was also worried that human demon would use the trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain. With the help of Di Tianming and the Palace Protection Formation, He Jiming believed that even if human demon hid around, he would not be able to attack the Emperor Palace. Boom! 5 minutes after He Jiming and Zhang Chang left, one of the sages opened the Palace Protection Formation under Di Zhao's instruction. Good chance. Seeing that the Palace Protection Formation was opened, human demon was overjoyed and hurried to rush out of the void. Wait! Before human demon could rush out, Ningyu grabbed his arm and said in a deep voice, "Be careful!" Swish! Human demon saw that he did not have much time left, so he was so impulsive when he saw the Palace Protection Formation was opened. Ningyu's warning immediately made human demon realize that something was wrong. There must be something wrong when something was wrong. He Jiming and Zhang Chang had already left, and Di Shao chose to open the Palace Protection Formation at this time. Human demon forcibly restrained his impulse to attack and carefully spread his powerful perception around. He really didn't leave. This probing made human demon's face turn a little ugly. Fortunately, Ningyu had reminded him, otherwise, he would have rushed out rashly and would have returned empty-handed. He Jiming and Zhang Chang were all hiding at the edge of the Palace Protection Formation. If human demon dared to show his face, they would definitely come out at the first moment and open the Palace Protection Formation. If that happened, the whole plan would collapse. Thank you for the reminder. Taking a deep breath, human demon said to Ningyu, "If it weren't for you, all the plan would have failed." "It's what I should have done," Ningyu said. Right now, Ningyu and human demon were in the same boat. To be precise, Ningyu's life was completely in human demon's hands. If anything were to happen to the human devil, Ningyu would definitely be finished. "When are we leaving?" In the void next to the Palace Protection Formation, Zhang Chang looked very anxious. They had already delayed for half an hour, and now they were delayed for another 5 minutes. Zhang Chang's lungs were about to explode. There were several sage martial artists from the Zhang family in Emperor City. There were a total of 9 major families in the demon spirit realm, and the Zhang family could only rank in the middle and lower reaches. Once the sage martial artists from the Zhang family in Emperor City were killed by human demon, the Zhang family would definitely be in the bottom 3 among the 9 major families. Wait for another 5 minutes. He Jiming said in a deep voice, "We'll leave in 5 minutes." Okay, we'll wait for the last 5 minutes, Zhang Chang said, gritting his teeth. He had to lower his head. No matter how strong Zhang Chang was, he had to listen to He Jiming. After all, this was Emperor Palace, and there were more than a dozen sage martial artists around. It was not wise to clash with He Jiming. 5 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Can we go now? Zhang Chang stared at He Jiming and said coldly, It has already been 40 minutes since the human demon left. If we were a step late, the human demon would have recovered. At that time, it would be harder for us to kill the human demon than to ascend to heaven. Let's go. He Jiming wanted to stay a little longer, but after hearing Zhang Chang's cold words, he immediately decided to leave. Buzz. There was a slight tremor in the void. He Jiming, Zhang Chang and the others rushed towards Emperor's City at a terrifying speed. 5 minutes after He Jiming and Zhang Chang left, when Di Tianming and Di Xiao entered the Emperor Divine Palace, Human Devil and Ning Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Then, Human Demon and Ning Yu began to use their perception to probe the palace protection formation. Even though He Jiming and Zhang Chang, the two most terrifying people, had left, there was still the palace protection formation in front of Ning Yu and Human Demon. If he wanted to sneak into the Emperor Palace, he would have to break the palace protection formation without anyone noticing. Chapter 1729. Chapter 1729, a net. However, how difficult was it to break through the palace protecting formation without anyone noticing? Even if the human demon recovered to peak sage realm, it would still be difficult, much less late-stage sage realm. This was because the palace protecting formation had been brought by He Jiming from a high-level realm. Relatively speaking, it was difficult for low-level realms to compete with high-level realms in the field of teleportation formations. While the human demon was staring at the palace protecting formation, Ning Yu was also staring at it. Undeniably, the palace protection formation of Emperor Palace was too perfect. In Ning Yu's opinion, even if Grandmaster Zhao came personally, he wouldn't be able to break through the formation. As for the human demon, Ning Yu didn't believe that he was much stronger than Grandmaster Zhao. The only thing the human demon had that was stronger than Grandmaster Zhao was his cultivation. After devouring a drop of Qilin blood, the human demon's cultivation had recovered to late-stage sage realm. Late-stage sage realm was already at the peak of the immortal spirit realm. However, the cultivation of a late-stage human demon saint was useless against the protective formation of the palace of the Emperor Divine Palace. Screw it. The human demon knew that if this dragged on and his aura started to drop, the consequences would be unimaginable. Rather than waiting for death, he might as well give it a try. If he succeeded, he could seize control of the palace. If he failed, he could just think of a way to escape. Hold on, there must be a way. Let me think. Ning Yu called out to the human demon. At the same time, he was trying to think of a solution. Ning Yu knew very well that if the human demon rushed out now, he wouldn't be able to break through the formation, even if he used brute force. There was only one chance, and Ning Yu didn't want to waste it. What should I do? Ning Yu clenched his fist. The helplessness in the depths of his heart made him indifferent. I got it. Suddenly, Ning Yu smacked his head and said hurriedly, Senior Human Demon, how's your disguise technique? Disguise technique? Hearing Ning Yu's baffling words, the human demon was taken aback at first, but he quickly came to a realization. Meanwhile, at the main entrance of the Emperor Divine Palace, two martial artists were whispering. Do you think Uncle Chang will be able to stop the massacre of the human demons? Under Di Tianming's treatment, Zhang Kejuan had already recovered. At this moment, Zhang Kejuan was rubbing his hands together with a worried look on his face. Zhang Kejuan was the main person in charge of this trip to Emperor God Palace. It didn't matter if he failed the mission. After all, he was a prospective war god of the Zhang family. Not many people would criticize him. However, if 4 or 5 of the Zhang clan sages died, he would be held responsible. At that time, not only would the title of quasi-war god be taken away, but his life would also be in danger. One had to know that he wasn't the only war god of the Zhang family in the demon spirit realm. With this layer of relationship, the worry on Zhang Kejuan's face was not an act, but a genuine worry. If Zhang Chang is alone, it might be a little difficult. Di Tianming frowned slightly. Then, he changed the topic and said, however, with He Jiming bringing 4 or 5 warriors of the initial stage of the Sage realm to help, this matter is definitely in the bag. I hope so. Although Di Tianming had said this, Zhang Kejuan was still very worried. For Zhang Kejuan, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was in a life-or-death situation. Whoosh! About a minute later, just as Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming were about to leave, the void outside Emperor God Palace trembled. Then 2 warriors appeared. Someone is back. The change in the void caused Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming's expressions to change drastically. They hurriedly opened the main gate of Emperor God Palace and flew out. Creak! As soon as Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming came out, Di Shao followed them with a dozen sages. After all, this was Emperor God Palace. Di Shao was the palace master of Emperor God Palace. Now that someone had appeared, he naturally had to show up immediately. A high-level plane is indeed terrifying. Di Shao was seriously injured, but he recovered in such a short time. Seeing Di Zhao's lively appearance, Ningyu couldn't help but smack his lips. This trip to Emperor God Palace allowed Ningyu to see how terrifying a high-level plane was. A dozen sages, the palace-protecting formation, and a recovered Di Shao. No matter which one it was enough for Ningyu to pay attention to it. The sect behind He Jiming is not simple. Moreover, Di Shao only has a superficial wound that can be healed with a few elixirs. The sect behind He Jiming wouldn't stop Di Shao on this. Perhaps sensing Ningyu's shock, Human Demon sent a voice transmission, act more realistically later. Don't let the cat out of the bag. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Speaking of business, Ningyu's expression was still rather solemn. The aura of a late-stage human demon saint could last for another 10 minutes. After that, it would immediately drop to the freezing point. Within 10 minutes, they had to control all the warriors in Emperor God Palace and the palace-protecting formation. The task was rather difficult, and Ningyu couldn't afford to be careless. Uncle Chang? Elder? Seeing Ningyu and Human Demon, Zhang Kejuan and Di Shao said almost at the same time. Among them, Zhang Kejuan's face was rather pale or even bloodless. In Zhang Kejuan's opinion, Zhang Chang's return so soon meant that the Zhang family sages in Emperor City were most likely dead. Thinking that all the Zhang family sages had died in Emperor City, Zhang Kejuan had the urge to vomit blood. Relatively speaking, Di Zhao's expression was much better. Among all the sages who descended from the high-level planes, only He Jiming thought highly of Di Shao and protected him. Although He Jiming had told the rest of the sages to follow Di Zhao's orders before he left for Divine City, they had to listen to Di Shao. But Di Zhao's strength was too weak to suppress so many sages. Everyone seemed to obey Di Shao on the surface, but in fact they were very dissatisfied with Di Shao. Now that He Jiming had returned, Di Shao was naturally very happy. Di Shao didn't care whether He Jiming had killed Human Demon or not. Right now, all he wanted to do was to stabilize his position and go to the high-level planes as soon as possible. Because Di Shao and Zhang Kejuan each had their own ulterior motives, they didn't notice anything wrong with Zhang Chang and He Jiming. Boom. Di Shao even personally ordered the 2 sages to open the palace protection formation and let Ningyu and Human Demon in. Whoosh, whoosh. Human Demon and Ningyu didn't argue. They flew side by side, and in the blink of an eye, they entered Emperor Palace and headed for the largest hall of Emperor Palace. Seeing Zhang Chang and He Jiming come in, Di Shao and Zhang Kejuan didn't dare to delay and hurried to catch up. Zhang Kejuan wanted to ask about the Zhang family sages, and Di Shao wanted to enter the high-level planes earlier. Therefore, Ning Yu and human demon definitely wouldn't be discovered at this stage. As for how long? Chapter 1730. Waiting for you to come in. Before long, Ning Yu and human demon arrived in front of the largest palace in Emperor Divinity Palace. Standing in front of the palace gate, He Ji-ming waved his hand and said in a clear voice, "What are you all doing here? Go to the palace's defensive formation and guard it. Don't let that traitor Sun Deshun and human devil take advantage of the situation." Yes. As the human demon spoke, he quietly released his mid-stage sage aura. Under the deterrence of the human demon, the surrounding sages were very obedient and obediently retreated to the side of the palace protecting formation. Seeing the saints leave, the demon nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at Di Shao and said, "Come with me." Di Shao was overjoyed when he saw He Jiming had asked him to stay behind. He quickly followed the human devil into the palace. Looking at the human devil and Emperor Shao entering the palace, Ning Yu knew that it was done. As long as the human devil was given half a minute, he would be able to control Di Shao. According to the plan that Ning Yu and the human demon had discussed before, the human demon would first control Di Shao, then Di Tianming and Zhang Kejuan. Therefore, Ning Yu's current task was to stall Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming so that they wouldn't get suspicious. Uncle Chang, the saint of the Zhang family of Emperor City. After the Di Shao and the human demon left, Zhang Kejuan could no longer suppress the worry in his heart and hurriedly asked, "Don't worry, they have activated the city protection formation and are now using it to fight against the human demons." Ning Yu interrupted Zhang Kejuan's words and said indifferently. After saying this, Ning Yu looked at Zhang Kejuan, who wanted to say something but hesitated. He thought for a moment and continued. He Jiming left 4 or 5 sages to help, so you don't have to worry about Emperor City. Hearing this, Zhang Kejuan revealed a relieved expression. As long as the Zhang family's saint was fine, Zhang Kejuan did not want to care about anything else. "You can come in." At this time, Di Zhao's voice came from the main hall. Although Di Shao had called them in, Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming still rushed into the main hall without stopping. After all, this was Emperor Divine Palace, and Di Shao was the palace master of Emperor Divine Palace on the surface. Otherwise, the plan to negotiate with Emperor God Palace would be ruined. Boom. However, as soon as Zhang Kejuan and Di Tianming entered the hall, something shocking happened. Di Shao turned into a blur and charged at Zhang Kejuan at an extremely terrifying speed. Di Tianming's expression changed slightly at Di Zhao's sudden attack. Zhang Kejuan was a half-step saint, while Di Shao was a saint. Since Di Shao had attacked Zhang Kejuan so blatantly, Zhang Kejuan definitely had no way to resist. Di Tianming stared at the calm and composed Zhang Chang. The idea of intervening was thrown to the back of his mind. Even Zhang Chang, a martial artist at the middle stage of the sage realm, did not make a move. How could it be his turn to show up? Furthermore, Di Tianming thought that Di Shao and Zhang Kejuan were just sparring, and it was not convenient for him to intervene. Di Tianming was not the only one who thought that Di Shao wanted to spar with Zhang Kejuan. Even Zhang Kejuan himself thought so. Therefore, Zhang Kejuan did not use his trump card. Instead, he used his physical strength to fight against Di Shao. Crack! But soon, Zhang Kejuan realized that he was wrong. The power of Di Zhao's punch was extremely powerful. With a single punch, Zhang Kejuan's fist was directly broken. The breaking of his fist made Zhang Kejuan's expression change drastically. He hurriedly wanted to use his trump card. Puff! But how could Di Shao give Zhang Kejuan the chance to use his trump card? He did not let Zhang Kejuan off. He rushed forward and punched again. This punch landed on Zhang Kejuan's face. The huge force made Zhang Kejuan spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. "What did you do to me?" Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zhang Kejuan roared crazily at Di Shao. Zhang Kejuan naturally did not care about the physical pain. After all, he was a half-step saint and Di Xiao was a saint. But when Di Xiao's fist came into contact with his cheek, a cold light quietly entered his body. It was this cold light that almost drove Zhang Kejuan crazy. Because Zhang Kejuan could clearly feel that his life was in someone else's hands. This feeling of his life being controlled by someone else made Zhang Kejuan very uncomfortable. But people under eaves had to bow their heads. If Zhang Kejuan wanted Di Xiao to retract the cold light in his body, he had to change his tone. So, Zhang Kejuan took a deep breath and changed his tone. Palace Master Di Xiao, I came here to cooperate with you. I hope you won't make this kind of joke again. Do you think he's joking with you? Human Demon took a step forward and said, If you know what's good for you, shut up as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. While speaking, Human Demon's mind moved and directly triggered the cold light in Zhang Kejuan's body. When the cold light was triggered, Zhang Kejuan let out a hysterical scream. Zhang Kejuan's scream was extremely miserable. If Ningyu hadn't been mentally prepared, he would have probably looked at Zhang Kejuan in a different light. Human Demon had said before that he would use an iron fist to control Di Xiao and Zhang Kejuan. He also said that Zhang Kejuan and Di Xiao were key figures. Once he controlled them, his plan would be halfway to success. Are you going to come over obediently and let me control you, or should I just kill you? After dealing with Zhang Kejuan, Human Demon looked at Di Tianming with interest. I've locked down the hall. You only have two choices now. Surrender or die. Di Tianming's expression was gloomy. To be honest, he was 100 times unwilling to surrender to He Jiming. First of all, He Jiming's cultivation was only one level higher than his. No matter what, Di Tianming was still a peak early-stage sage. Di Tianming's gaze shifted to Ningyu, who was also Zhang Chang in his heart. But at this time, Zhang Chang's expression was indifferent, as if he had already reached some kind of agreement with He Jiming. Di Tianming was in a trance. He didn't know what He Jiming had offered to move Zhang Chang. Could He Jiming have promised to let Zhang Chang reach late-stage sage? Di Tianming didn't dare to think about it. He didn't want to. Sigh. Suddenly, Ningyu sighed. Let's compromise. As soon as Ningyu's voice fell, Human Demon cooperated and released his late-stage sage aura. What? As expected. The moment Human Demon released his late-stage sage aura, Di Tianming's expression changed. He was stunned. Late-stage sage? When did He Jiming reach late-stage sage? No wonder Zhang Chang was on He Jiming's side. He Jiming had long since reached late-stage sage. Everything seemed to make sense now. Schwa. Human Demon didn't care whether Di Tianming was in a trance or not. He grasped this rare opportunity and flew to Di Tianming's side. Not good. Seeing He Jiming suddenly appear in front of him, Di Tianming's expression changed. He hurriedly tried to block. Bang. However, it was already too late for Di Tianming to resist. Chapter 1731. Chapter 1731. Chapter 1731 Mission Rumble. The Human Demon's fist had not only struck Di Tianming's head, but also his hope of escaping. The booming sound in his head made Di Tianming feel extremely dizzy. However, Di Tianming didn't have the time to pay attention to whether the Human Demon would make a second move. His focus was on his mind. Not only had the Human Demon's punch landed on his head, but it had also sent a ray of cold light into his brain. It was this cold glint that caused Di Tianming's heart to sink. Di Tianming could clearly sense that He Jiming could kill him on the spot with a single thought. He Jiming, I have no enmity with you. Why are you doing this to me? Di Tianming gritted his teeth and glared at the Human Demon, his face filled with indignation. To be honest, Di Tianming really couldn't understand. He was only at the peak of the early stage of the Sage Realm. Why did He Jiming want to control him? If it was said that He Jiming valued his strength and wanted to take him in as a follower, he would definitely not believe it. He Jiming was someone from a higher plane, and he was only at the peak of the early stage of the sage realm. He Jiming did not need to spend so much effort to control him. But after thinking about it, Di Tianming didn't know what He Jiming was thinking. Why? The corner of the human demon's mouth curled up as he stared at Di Tianming. However, as he stared at Di Tianming, his appearance gradually changed. Human demon. When Di Tianming saw the human demon's original appearance, he was so shocked that he couldn't speak. In the end, He Jiming wasn't He Jiming, but a human demon in disguise. No wonder he would attack him. Something's wrong. Suddenly, Di Tianming shifted his gaze to Ningyu. Since human demon pretended to be He Jiming, then Zhang Chang must be Ningyu. Buzz. Although Di Tianming had guessed this result, he still slumped to the ground when Ningyu revealed his true appearance. He had really led the wolf into the house this time. Di Xiao, go to the Great Palace Protecting Formation and bring 5 sages here. Ignoring Di Tianming, human demon turned to Di Xiao and said, "Remember, don't alert the enemy." Yes. Di Xiao didn't dare to tarry and left the hall. Di Xiao left quickly and returned just as quickly. A minute later, Di Xiao brought the 5 saints back to the main hall. 4 for me, 1 for you. The human demon first sent a voice transmission to Di Tianming. Then, he rushed forward and faced the 4 of them alone. Although Di Tianming was extremely unwilling, he didn't dare to behave atrociously in front of the human demon. What's more, the human demon only controlled him, not restricted his combat power. Right now, he was still at the peak of the early saint realm. It was a piece of cake for him to deal with an early-stage sage realm warrior. Rumble. The battle did not last long. Even though the human demon was fighting 1 against 4, he still had the absolute advantage. In just a minute, the human demon had subdued the 4 early-stage sage realm warriors. A minute and a half later, Di Tianming defeated another sage. Xiao. Although Di Tianming had taken control of the other saint, the human demon was still worried. He flicked his finger and a cold light shot out, entering the mind of the saint controlled by Di Tianming. 1 minute and 40 seconds had passed. In this 1 minute and 40 seconds, all 5 saints were under the human demon's control. Their lives were in the human demon's hands. Di Xiao, you are the Palace Lord of Emperor Palace. You should know the Emperor Palace very well. The human demon did not waste any time. After all, he didn't have much time left, so he went straight to the point. You and Di Tianming, take 2 early-stage Sage Realm warriors, and control all the Emperor Palace Late Sky Supreme warriors and above. Di Zhao's heart skipped a beat when he heard the human demon's words. Di Xiao was no fool. He knew what the human demon meant by control. If that was the case, then the entire Emperor Palace would have a new owner. Di Zhao's face darkened. He was the Palace Lord of Emperor Palace. If the Emperor Palace changed owners so easily, how could he face the ancestors of Emperor Palace? How could he face the founding ancestors of Emperor Palace? How could Di Zhao's plan be hidden from the human demon? The human demon had never been merciful to those who did not listen to his orders. Moreover, Di Xiao had attacked him and Ningyu while they were resting. The human demon did not forget this grudge. Without another word, the human demon triggered the cold light in Di Zhao's body, causing him to spit out several mouthfuls of blood. Di Xiao spat out several mouthfuls of blood, and his face turned extremely pale. Last chance. The human demon extended his index finger. I don't want to say it twice. Swish, swish, swish. Seeing that the human demon was enraged, Di Tianming and the other 2 initial Sage Realm cultivators immediately rushed out of the hall. Di Tianming and the other 2 sages were no fools. If they didn't do as Ningyu said, they would end up like Di Xiao. Swish. Di Xiao glared at the human demon, then flew out of the hall with a face full of unwillingness. The human demon did not care about Di Zhao's murderous glare. If Di Xiao wasn't useful to him, he would have killed him long ago. Why would he wait until now? The three of you have a simple task. The human demon looked at the three shivering sages in the hall. There's still some distance from here to the main entrance of the Emperor Palace. I don't want to see anyone in the middle. Understood. The three sages thought the human demon would issue an order, but it turned out that it was just an insignificant one. All Late Sky Supreme and above cultivators were under the control of Di Xiao and Di Tianming. It would be a waste for the three sages to stop anyone below that level. Senior Human Demon, how long will it take for you to recover from the backlash of the Qilin blood? After the last three sages left, Ningyu looked at the human demon and asked. As for Zhang Kejuan, Ningyu had no time to worry about him. What Ningyu cared about was how long it would take for the human demon to recover from the backlash of the Qilin blood. After all, it had been half an hour since He Jiming and Zhang Chong left. It wouldn't be long before He Jiming and Zhang Chong returned. What would they do when that happened? About an hour. How could the human demon not know what Ningyu was worried about? But the human demon was helpless. This was the immortal spirit region, and there weren't many elixirs for him to recover. An hour of recovery time was his most conservative estimate. Under normal circumstances, he would need 2 to 3 hours to recover. How about this? Let's go to the Emperor Palace's treasury and see if we can find anything useful. Chapter 1732. The dungeon, that's right, why didn't I think of that? Hearing Ningyu's words, Human Demon was suddenly enlightened, revealing a look of excitement. As one of the top sects in the Sky Demon region, Emperor Palace definitely had a lot of treasures. However, Human Demon was not particularly interested in the heavenly treasures of the Emperor Divine Palace. What Human Demon cared about was whether He Jiming had left anything behind. He Jiming was someone from a higher plane, so the things he brought with him would definitely be more precious than the treasures in Emperor Palace. Swish. Swish. Human Demon and Ningyu weren't theoretical, but practical. The two of them immediately chased after Di Xiao. Di Xiao was the palace lord of Emperor Palace, so he definitely knew what treasures were in the palace. Therefore, finding Di Xiao was the wisest decision. What's wrong? Di Xiao tensed up when he saw the travel-worn Ningyu and Human Demon. His life was in the hands of the Human Demon. At this time, he didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction to the Human Demon. Take out all the precious herbs you have in the Emperor Divine Palace. Ningyu went straight to the point. This, Di Xiao hesitated. To be honest, he didn't want to take out the precious herbs in Emperor Palace. But when he remembered that his life was in Human Demon's hands, he immediately said, "There are indeed many precious herbs in Emperor Palace. The Emperor Divine Palace does have a lot of precious medicinal herbs, but they may not be very attractive to warriors of the Saint Realm. If you need them, I can take you to the dungeon to meet someone. He has a very precious medicinal herb." Ningyu frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. Di Xiao didn't care whether Ningyu said anything or not. In his opinion, Human Demon's attitude was what he was concerned about. "What herb?" Human Demon asked. "Ascension grass," Di Xiao answered. "What the F***ck?" Human Demon swore on the spot, a look of horror on his face. The reason why Human Demon had such an expression was because the Ascension grass was too precious, so precious that it was rare even in a higher plane. In a higher plane, the Ascension grass was only in the hands of a few big sects or families. While shocked, the Human Demon was also very curious. Since the Emperor Divine Palace had caught the martial artist who possessed the Ascension grass and imprisoned him in the dungeon, why was the Ascension grass still with that martial artist? One had to know that a stalk of Ascension immortal grass had the chance to create a martial artist that surpassed the sage level. "Take me there." The Human Demon took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Human Demon knew very well that he couldn't afford to panic at this point. After all, there was not much time left for him. He must find a way to overcome the backlash brought by the Qilin's blood before He Jiming and Zhang Chong came back. Whoosh! After that, Di Xiao led the way, while Ning Yu and the human devil followed closely behind. As for Di Tianming and the other two sages, they went to control the higher-ups of Emperor God Palace obediently and did not dare to slack off. Creak! Following Di Xiao, Ning Yu and the human devil turned left and right, and finally, a minute later, they arrived at the entrance of the dungeon. Di Xiao took out a golden key from his pocket and inserted it into the hole on the stone door. The thick and heavy stone door slowly opened. Originally, Di Xiao wanted to let the human devil and Ning Yu enter first, but when he saw the cold expression on the human devil's face, he immediately moved and entered the dungeon first. Di Xiao was a shrewd man. Although he was the palace master of Emperor God Palace, he did not want to enter the dungeon. In other words, no one from Emperor God Palace wanted to enter the dungeon. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that the human devil wanted to plunder the Emperor God Palace's treasury, Di Xiao would not have entered the dungeon like a fool. Because the last time he entered the dungeon, Di Xiao's scalp was still tingling with numbness. Clatter! Not long after Ning Yu and the others entered the dungeon, they heard clattering sounds. Vampire bats! Di Xiao's face was full of fear and his eyes flickered. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "Senior human demon, these vampire bats are all under the control of the Ascension Grass's owner. If we dare to take even half a step forward, they will attack us." Not only was Di Xiao terrified, but his scalp was also numb. Not long ago, Di Xiao had boasted that he had reached the half-step saint realm, so he had rashly entered the dungeon after coming out of the training ground. At that time, if he hadn't run fast enough, he would have become food for the vampire bat. Therefore, Di Xiao still felt a little traumatized when he faced the vampire bats again. What's the cultivation of the Ascension Grass's owner? The human devil stopped and did not continue forward. Instead, he stared at Di Xiao and said doubtfully, "These vampire bats are not weak. Although most of them are at the peak of the Sky Supreme Realm, there are a few that have reached the half-step Saint Realm. They should be mid-stage Saint Realm, or even late-stage Saint Realm." Di Xiao suddenly felt a little embarrassed when he mentioned the cultivation of the Ascension Grass's owner. In fact, the reason why the Ascension Grass's owner was imprisoned in the dungeon was because of the founder of Emperor God Palace. It was said that after the founder founded Emperor God Palace, he personally built the dungeon to imprison the Ascension Grass's owner in it. "Go in." The human devil pouted and said faintly. Di Xiao felt like crying when he heard the human devil tell him to go deeper into the dungeon. If he went deeper into the dungeon now, he would definitely face the vampire bat. But he reaped what he sowed. Di Xiao was the one who had caused all of this. Helpless, Di Xiao could only bite the bullet and go deeper. Whoosh! As soon as Di Xiao took a few steps forward, a few vampire bats rushed towards him. Kill! Seeing so many vampire bats flying towards him, Di Xiao's anger flared up. The last time he came here, he was only a half-step Saint Realm expert. This time, he was an early-stage Saint Realm expert. You bullied me when I was a half-step Saint Realm expert. Now that you're an early-stage Saint Realm expert, you still dare to bully me? This was intolerable. Rumble. Di Xiao didn't care about the consequences and directly launched a powerful attack. Whoosh! Under Di Xiao's powerful attack, hordes of vampire bats fell and died on the spot. That's all. Seeing so many vampire bats die in front of him, Di Xiao smirked and said coldly, "If I knew you were so weak, I wouldn't have waited until now." Is that so? It seems like you really want the Ascension Grass. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. Yes, I really want the Ascension Grass. No. Di Xiao nodded and said proudly. However, Di Xiao's words came to an abrupt halt. His eyes stared at the depths of the dungeon and said in fear, "Who are you?" Chapter 1733. Chapter 1733. Chapter 1733 Immortal Ascension Grass Thump. The words that entered his ears caused Di Xiao to stagger and almost fall to the ground. Kill Di Xiao and the human devil? What a joke! Right now, Di Xiao's life was still in the hands of the human devil. If the human devil wanted him dead by midnight, he wouldn't be able to live past midnight. Under this premise, Di Xiao naturally would not foolishly make an enemy of the human devil. Humph! Who do you think you are? How dare you order me? Thinking of this, Di Xiao immediately snorted coldly at the depths of the dungeon. This is Emperor Palace and I am the Palace Master of Emperor Palace. If you know what's good for you, hand over the ascending immortal grass as soon as possible. Otherwise I will kill you. While speaking, Di Xiao quietly took a few steps back, getting closer to the human devil. Although Di Xiao looked arrogant on the surface, he was actually very nervous. At this time, Di Xiao's heart was a mess, and he was extremely worried. What if the owner of the ascending immortal grass was really angry? Would the human demon stand up for him? Good, very good. You really are arrogant. The owner of the ascending immortal grass wasn't angered by Di Xiao's words. He only left behind a few words before disappearing without a trace. Voila! Not only that, the flock of vampire bats also retreated in unison, disappearing into the depths of the underground prison. Di Xiao couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw the vampire bats disappear. The worry in his heart lessened a little. No matter what, since the owner of the immortal ascension grass was willing to withdraw so many vampire bats, it meant that he was still very afraid of the human demon. As long as the owner of the immortal ascension grass was afraid of the human devil, then this trip to the dungeon would not be particularly dangerous. Lead the way. The human demon gazed into the depths of the dungeon, then turned to Di Xiao and said, I want to see who the owner of the ascending immortal grass is. To be honest, the human demon had chosen to come to the dungeon to obtain the immortal ascension grass. Even if the human demons wanted to obtain the immortal ascension grass, they would choose to obtain it through legitimate means, such as exchanging immortal crystals or Qilin fruit. But now, the human demon had changed his mind. After all, if it wasn't for the fact that he was powerful, he would have become food in the stomach of the owner of the ascending immortal grass. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Sometimes you don't want to kill someone, but they'll send their neck and head right in front of you. In this kind of situation, if he still didn't kill him, it would seem a little unreasonable. Sha. Perhaps it was because of the human devil's influence, but Di Xiao's courage suddenly grew. Next, Di Xiao led the way and lit up the passage to the dungeon. After the passage to the dungeon lit up, Ning Yu and the human demon Fong realized that there was another world here. There are actually so many formations. As he walked, Ning Yu's gaze moved around. The passage to the dungeon was not particularly spacious. In fact, it was a little narrow, so narrow that it could only accommodate 2 people at the same time. It didn't matter if it was narrow. The most important thing was that from time to time, a formation would appear on the walls on both sides of the passage. At first, the density of the array formations was relatively small. However, as they continued to go deeper, the density of the array formations increased. There were even many array formations above and below them. Ever since the dungeon was built, these formations have only been opened 3 times. As if seeing the doubt in Ning Yu's eyes, Di Xiao explained, I don't know the reason for the first 2 times, but the 3rd time, it was because of the owner of the ascending immortal grass. Hearing this, Ning Yu and the human devil raised their eyebrows and looked at Di Xiao in confusion. Being stared at by Ning Yu and the human devil, Di Xiao didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, he continued, in the past, the owner of the ascending immortal grass wasn't the only person imprisoned in the dungeon. There were at least a few hundred people. A few decades ago, the few hundred warriors imprisoned in the dungeon were all devoured by the owner of the ascending immortal grass in one night. At that time, the owner of the ascending immortal grass only had one goal, which was to use the energy of so many people to break out of the dungeon. However, the owner of the ascending immortal grass clearly underestimated the power of the formations. At that time, all the formations in the dungeon were activated, and the owner of the ascending immortal grass was heavily injured. Since then, the owner of the ascending immortal grass became obedient. Who would have thought that when we came in this time, he would have evil thoughts again? Hearing Di Zhao's explanation, Ning Yu and the human devil looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. The owner of the ascending immortal grass was treating them like fools. He wanted to devour them and use the energy in their bodies to break the formations. The human devil was now at the late stage of the sage realm, while Di Zhao was at the early stage of the sage realm. Once they were controlled by the owner of the ascending immortal grass, there was a real possibility that they could break the formations. We're here. At that moment, Di Zhao suddenly stopped in his tracks and pointed to an empty area in front of him. The owner of the ascending immortal grass should be in there. Swoosh! Ning Yu and the human devil looked in the direction of Di Zhao's palm. Not far in front of them, there was a slightly empty area. The area wasn't particularly large. Under normal circumstances, it should be the size of a prison cell. This dungeon seems a little small. Ning Yu looked around and felt that something was wrong. The Emperor Palace was one of the top forces. Moreover, Di Zhao had just said that there were originally hundreds of warriors locked in the dungeon. However, along the way, Ning Yu didn't find any room for warriors. The entire dungeon gave Ning Yu the impression that it was a straight passageway. It was not particularly long, and at the end of the passageway there was a narrow area. This was the dungeon of the Emperor Palace? If this was really the dungeon of the Emperor God Palace, it didn't make sense. Don't be fooled by the illusion in front of you. Before Di Zhao could explain, the human devil said in a deep voice, "The dungeon is indeed very large. However, the dungeon should be under the control of the owner of the ascending immortal grass." Ah! Right at that moment, a loud laughter was heard. Then, the space split open and a white-haired old man appeared in front of Ning Yu and the others. "Not simple. I originally thought that you were just an ordinary late-stage saint warrior. Now, it seems that I was wrong. Very wrong." The white-haired old man stared at the human devil and said, "If I'm not wrong, you come from a high-level plane. Your real cultivation should be beyond a saint. It's just that you're injured. At first, I wanted to devour you and use the energy in your bodies to leave the dungeon. Now I've changed my mind. How about we make a deal?" As soon as he finished speaking, the white-haired old man stared straight at the human devil, as if he was eager to know what the human devil was thinking. When the white-haired old man stared at the human devil stared back. "Let's go." Feeling the aura from the white-haired old man, the human devil's face turned pale. In a few minutes, the human devil's cultivation would drop to the freezing point. Moreover, the white-haired old man was a late-stage saint. He was extremely shrewd and would definitely not be able to get the ascending immortal grass in a short time. The human devil knew the consequences of not getting the ascending immortal grass. Therefore, he decided not to stay and turned to leave. Seeing the human devil turn to leave, the white-haired old man's expression changed. Thinking of his current situation, the white-haired old man gritted his teeth and said, "Bring me out of the dungeon and I'll give you the ascending immortal grass." Chapter 1734. Zhang Chang. Whoosh. The moment the white-haired elder took out the immortal ascension grass, the human demon stopped. Even though the human demon did not turn around, he could still feel the aura of the immortal ascension grass. "As long as you bring me out of this prison, this immortal ascension grass is all yours." Seeing the human demon stop, the white-haired elder's worry lessened a little. Since he had devoured hundreds of martial artists in the prison, the white-haired elder had quite a lot of things on him. In other words, The white-haired elder was not afraid of the human demon asking for an exorbitant price. He was afraid that the human demon would not negotiate with him. In the white-haired elder's opinion, the human demon only wanted magical treasures and pills. Naturally, the white-haired elder would not be stingy with things like magical treasures and pills. "It's not impossible for me to bring you out." The human demon looked back at the white-haired elder with a slight frown. "The condition is that you give me the immortal ascension grass first. Once I refine it, I will naturally bring you out of this prison." "Do you think I'm a fool?" Hearing the human demon's words, the white-haired elder went berserk. Giving him the immortal ascension grass first? Isn't that nonsense? The white-haired elder was certain that if he handed over the immortal ascension grass, the human demon would definitely turn around and leave. The white-haired elder would definitely not agree to such a stupid thing. "If you insist on being a fool, I won't object." The human demon shrugged and stared at the immortal ascension grass in the white-haired elder's hand. "I'll say it one last time. Once I refine the immortal ascension grass, I will naturally bring you out of this prison." "Forget it." The white-haired elder was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. The reason why the white-haired elder did not refine the immortal ascension grass after being trapped in the prison for so long was because he wanted to save it for a crucial moment. One had to know that a stalk of immortal ascension grass had the chance to create an existence that surpassed the sages. How could the white-haired elder give such a precious herb to the human demon? Even when the white-haired elder said that he would give the immortal ascension grass to the human demon after he left, it was still a lie. A herb like the immortal ascension grass was rare even in a higher plane. The white-haired elder would definitely keep it for himself. Whoosh! As soon as the white-haired old man uttered the word, "No more talk," the human demon seemed to have predicted the white-haired old man's reaction. Grabbing Di Xiao in one hand and Ning Yu in the other, he dashed out of the dungeon at a terrifying speed. "Don't go, we still have things to talk about." The white-haired old man's expression changed when he saw the human demon leaving. At this moment, the white-haired old man even felt a little regretful. If the human demon really left, what should he do? Was he going to be trapped in the dungeon for the rest of his life? After all, only a late-stage saint would have the ability to take him out of the dungeon. Otherwise, over the years, many experts from the Emperor Divine Palace had entered the dungeon. He would have left long ago. Why would he wait until now? In the white-haired old man's heart, today was the last day he had hoped to leave since he had been imprisoned in the dungeon. Originally, the white-haired old man thought that he had the human devil in his grasp. But now it seemed that he was too naive. The human demon obviously didn't fall for his trick and turned around to leave. The white-haired old man panicked at the human demon's actions. "I can give you half of the immortal ascension grass first. I'll give you the other half after you take me away from here." Whoosh! What a pity! Even though the white-haired old man's voice was loud and urgent, he couldn't stop the human demon. In the blink of an eye, the human demon brought Ning Yu and Di Xiao to the entrance of the dungeon. Creak! Di Xiao let out a long sigh as he watched the dungeon door slowly close. To be honest, he had been very nervous when facing the white-haired old man in the dungeon. After all, the white-haired old man was a late-stage saint. If the human demon and the white-haired old man fought in the dungeon, he would be the one to suffer. "I'll leave the palace guarding formation to you. Try your best to buy me an hour of time." The human demon's expression was extremely solemn. He looked at Ning Yu and said, "Also, lend me your Qilin fruit and Qilin heartblood. I'll return them to you when we return to the higher realms." "No problem." Without any hesitation, Ning Yu took out the Qilin fruit and Qilin heartblood and threw them to the human demon. In fact, even without the human demon's words, Ning Yu already knew what was going on. It must be the backlash from the Qilin life blood that the human demon had swallowed earlier. Ning Yu knew very well that the human demon's current situation wasn't optimistic. If it was just the backlash from swallowing the Qilin lifeblood, the human demon definitely wouldn't ask for the Qilin fruit and heart blood. But since the human demon had spoken, it meant that the energy seal in his body couldn't be suppressed any longer. Whoosh! Taking the Qilin fruit and heart blood from Ningyu, the human demon's figure gradually turned illusory and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Let's go to the palace guarding formation. After the human demon left, Ningyu didn't linger. Instead, he glanced at Di Xiao and flew toward the palace guarding formation. There were about 10 early-stage Saint Realm cultivators at the palace guarding formation. Before the human demon recovered, how to gain the absolute trust of these 10 saints was a headache for Ningyu. As long as he could gain the trust of these 10 saints, Ningyu could let them control the palace guarding formation. That way, even if He Jiming and Zhang Chang returned, they wouldn't be able to easily break the palace guarding formation. The dungeon wasn't very far from the palace guarding formation. It didn't take long for Ningyu and Di Xiao to stop in front of the palace guarding formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Because Ningyu was now in Zhang Chang's appearance, only 3 cultivators flew over when he stopped. Did anyone suspicious appear during this time? Di Xiao's expression was indifferent as he asked in a low voice according to Ningyu's instructions. One of the short-haired saint warriors frowned slightly, as if he felt that Di Xiao's tone was a bit arrogant. But thinking of He Jiming's instructions before he left, the short-haired saint answered, "No one suspicious appeared." "That's good." Di Xiao nodded and then continued, "Elder, he told us to block the palace guarding formation within an hour. No one is allowed to come in." Buzz. Not long after Di Xiao's words fell, the void outside the palace guarding formation trembled, and then a group of 6 or 7 warriors appeared. Ningyu was very familiar with the 2 leading warriors. They were none other than He Jiming and Zhang Chang. "Hurry up and open the palace guarding formation." He Jiming's face was gloomy as he shouted at the palace guarding formation, "Don't be late, I want you to." However, He Jiming stopped abruptly before he could say the word good. Because He Jiming saw Zhang Chang next to Di Xiao. To be exact, he saw Zhang Chang, who was played by Ningyu. "Who the hell are you?" He Jiming saw Ningyu, and Zhang Chang naturally saw him clearly. Suddenly seeing his other self, Zhang Chang's whole person became violent. Chapter 1735. Chapter 1735. Chapter 1735. The army's morale shaken. Block the great formation. Don't let anyone in. Ningyu's expression did not change in the face of Zhang Chang's question. He said lightly, "If anyone dares to break into the great formation." At this point, Ningyu paused for a moment before his cold voice rang out. "Kill without mercy." As Ningyu said these words, the 10 warriors at the early stage of the sage realm around him immediately changed their expressions. The 10 warriors at the early stage of the sage realm were prejudiced. They had long believed that Ningyu was Zhang Chang and human demon was He Jiming. Now 2 warriors suddenly appeared, one claiming to be Zhang Chang and the other claiming to be He Jiming. How could they not be shocked? Although they were shocked, the 10 warriors at the early stage of the sage realm immediately scattered and looked at He Jiming and Zhang Chang vigilantly. As long as He Jiming and Zhang Chang dared to attack the great formation of the palace without permission, they would definitely activate the great formation to the extreme and kill them. "I'm so angry. I'm so angry." Seeing Ningyu fanning the great formation on the other side, Zhang Chang trembled with anger and his nose became crooked. Not only did he pretend to be himself, but he also gave orders. This was really intolerable. He Jiming and Zhang Chang had the same idea. At this time, He Jiming's face was gloomy and he could not help clenching his fists. However, He Jiming did not lose his mind. He had brought the great formation of the Emperor Palace from a high-level world, so he knew it very well. He Jiming was very self-aware. He knew that it was impossible for him to break the great formation of the palace with his ability. Even if Zhang Chang and the 4 or 5 warriors at the early stage of the Sage Realm joined in, they would not be able to break the great formation of the palace. If he really angered the fake Zhang Chang inside, he might end up getting himself into trouble. What should I do? Although Zhang Chang looked very angry, he was actually very rational. At such a critical moment, Zhang Chang did not choose to break the great formation of the palace with brute force. Instead, he turned to look at He Jiming and said in a deep voice, "You arranged the great formation of the palace. I hope you can break it as soon as possible." "I'm thinking of a way." He Jiming did not raise his head and said lightly, "Don't rush me." "Don't rush me? Do you think I want to rush you?" Hearing He Jiming's irresponsible words, Zhang Chang became even more furious. Zhang Chang didn't care who controlled the Emperor Palace. He only cared about one thing, and that was Zhang Kejuan's life. Zhang Kejuan was the quasi-war god of the Zhang family in the demonic spirit realm. If he died in the Emperor Divine Palace, it would be the end of his family. Di Xiao, what do you think of this matter? He Jiming's eyes flickered as he stared at Di Xiao and asked in a deep voice. He Jiming had been paying attention to Di Xiao from the corner of his eyes. He Jiming could conclude that Zhang Chang was pretending, but He Jiming knew that Di Xiao was definitely real. Because Di Xiao's few hidden movements almost told him everything that had happened in the Emperor God Palace. However, He Jiming was a very suspicious person. Even though Di Xiao had secretly communicated with him, he was still not at ease. In order to verify the authenticity of the news, He Jiming decided to test Di Xiao. What do I think? Of course, with my eyes open. Next to Ningyu, Di Xiao rolled his eyes and said, "If I'm not wrong, you two should be Human Demon and Ningyu." "I see." This time, He Jiming finally understood. Ningyu and Human Demon didn't leave. Instead, they lurked around. When He Jiming and Zhang Chang went to the Emperor City, they pretended to be them and sneaked into the Emperor Palace. Not only did they sneak into the Emperor Palace, but Ningyu and Human Demon also controlled most of the warriors in the Emperor Palace. However, there was one thing that made He Jiming very happy. Ningyu and Human Demon didn't have time to control the 10 early-stage Sage Realm warriors in front of them. In other words, as long as they could handle the 10 early-stage Sage Realm warriors, they could open the palace guarding formation. As long as the palace guarding formation was opened, He Jiming was 100% sure that he could easily subdue Ningyu. "I advise you to get out of here as soon as possible, otherwise." Di Xiao took a step forward and his cold voice resounded in the area. "Palace Master Di, I forgot to remind you that Elder He Jiming just asked you to go to the main hall." Ningyu frowned slightly and then waved his hand to interrupt Di Xiao's words. "I'll keep an eye on this place. You can rest assured." Bad news. As soon as Ningyu opened his mouth, Di Xiao knew that it was bad news. Since Ningyu asked him to leave, he must have found some clues. At this time, Di Xiao even showed a look of fear. The reason why Di Xiao chose to inform He Jiming was that he thought that Ningyu couldn't find out, and he didn't want to be controlled by Human Demon. Now that he was discovered by Ningyu, Di Xiao gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Elder He Jiming personally said that we must ensure the safety of the palace guarding formation. We must not let anyone break into the Emperor Palace." "Haha, Palace Master Di is really righteous." Ningyu smiled slightly and then said no more. Since Di Xiao was sensible, Ningyu didn't want to completely fall out with him. After all, with Di Xiao around, he could still stabilize the 10 Saint Realm warriors around. "I'm not righteous, my ass." Di Xiao muttered to himself and then said loudly, "Everyone, keep your spirits up. Don't lose face for the Emperor Palace." Crack crack. He Jiming saw Di Xiao's change before and after. He Jiming clenched his fists and his face gradually became gloomy. He Jiming must find a way to break the palace guarding formation and take back control of the Emperor Palace. He Jiming wouldn't hang on to one thing. Since Di Xiao didn't take the bait, His attention naturally shifted to an early-stage Saint Realm warrior around the corner. This early-stage Saint Realm warrior was called Zhao Qing. He had a crew cut and was not particularly tall. There was a very obvious scar on his forehead. Zhao Qing. Taking a deep breath, He Jiming stared at Zhao Qing and said coldly, 3 years ago, in Lin Yuenga, you had a conflict with a middle-stage Saint Realm warrior. If I hadn't arrived in time, your head would have been split open. But even if I arrived in time, there was still an indelible scar on your forehead. 2 years ago, in the Forest of Ruins, you were chased by a middle-stage Saint Realm demon beast. If I hadn't helped you stall that demon beast, you would have died. A year ago, you suffered from chi deviation. It was me who protected you and made sure that you were safe. 3 months ago, the sect, boom. He Jiming's words caused Zhao Qing's eyes to widen. His entire body froze on the spot. Zhao Qing was very confused. Was this He Jiming in front of him the real He Jiming? Why did he know so much about me? At this moment, Zhao Qing's heart began to waver. Although He Jiming's words made sense, Zhao Qing still didn't dare to open the palace guarding formation. There was no other reason. Zhao Qing didn't dare to take the risk. Chapter 1736. Chapter 1736. Chapter 1736. Crack with all your might, looks like we won't be able to stall for much longer. He Jiming's actions were completely seen by Ningyu. Originally, Ningyu thought that as long as he controlled the Emperor Shao and used it to threaten the 10 early-stage Saint Realm warriors, He Jiming would be restricted to death. But now, it seemed that He Jiming, this old fox, was indeed not simple. After talking about Zhao Qing, He Jiming began to talk about the second early-stage sage, Liang Xing. If He Jiming's understanding of Zhao Qing was not thorough enough, then his understanding of Liang Xing was simply a little insane. He Jiming even told him the exact time when Liang Xing wet the bed when he was young and peeked at the widow next door bathing. Enough. In the end, He Jiming only stopped when Liang Xing flipped out. However, He Jiming was not someone who would give up easily. Since Liang Xing could not say anything, his target immediately shifted to the third martial artist. Hence, in the next half an hour, He Jiming recounted the rise and fall of the remaining 8 warriors. He Jiming's move of removing the firewood from under the cauldron indeed had a great effect. At this moment, at least 4 or 5 of the 10 early-stage sage warriors chose to believe that He Jiming was the real He Jiming. As for the other 4 or 5 early-stage Saint Realm warriors, they chose to remain neutral and not help either side. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Another 10 minutes passed. The 5 early-stage sage martial artists couldn't help but rush out and begin to crack the palace protecting formation from the inside. He's finally here. Ningyu did not panic at all. Instead, he was calm. The rebellion of 5 early-stage Sage Realm warriors would not be a big deal. Di Shao, go stop them. The look in Ningyu's eyes turned cold and gloomy. He sent a message to Di Shao through his soul. There are still 20 minutes before the demi-demon fully recovers. No matter what, you have to hold him off for 20 minutes. As long as you can stall for 20 minutes, I can consider letting the human demon remove his control over you. Upon hearing Ningyu's words, Di Zhao's face turned a little solemn. Ever since he had been controlled by the human devil, Di Shao had been trying to find a way to get rid of it. Unfortunately, with Di Zhao's current strength, it was impossible for him to break the demon's control over him. Ningyu's proposal moved Di Shao a little. You have to swear a heavenly oath. Although he was tempted, Di Shao would not completely trust Ningyu. Di Shao would only feel at ease if Ningyu made the heavenly oath. I swear to the heavenly Tao that as long as you hold on for 20 minutes, I will definitely let the human demon remove his control over you and return you your freedom. Ningyu did not argue with Di Shao. He directly swore a heavenly Tao oath. Xiao. With Ningyu's promise, Di Xiao immediately rushed out and floated in the air. He said loudly, "Everyone, calm down. We can't just listen to their side of the story." When Elder He Jiming went to Divine Emperor City, he brought 4 or 5 early-stage Sage Realm warriors with him. Those 4 warriors haven't returned yet. I believe they must know about your origins. Whoosh! Di Zhao's words were flawless. The 5 early-stage Sage Realm warriors hurriedly withdrew their attacks and looked a little embarrassed. If things were really as Di Xiao said, then they would definitely be in trouble when He Jiming rushed over if they opened the protective formation rashly. Thinking of this, 2 early-stage Sage Realm warriors looked at Di Xiao with gratitude. Seeing the reaction of the 2 warriors, Di Zhao's mouth could not help but twitch a few times. You are grateful to me now, but when you know the truth, you will definitely scold me and my ancestors. What should we do now? Seeing that Di Xiao had destroyed He Jiming's 4-hour effort with just a few words, Zhang Chang became more and more worried. What else can we do? Let's attack together and attack the protective formation. He Jiming's eyes showed a determined look. Are you kidding me? Zhang Chang directly denied and said coldly, even if we join forces, we won't be able to break the protective formation. Zhang Chang was very self-aware of his own strength. Humph! You are boosting others' morale and diminishing your own power. He Jiming snorted and immediately sent a voice transmission to Zhang Chang. I have already convinced 2 early-stage Sage Realm warriors inside. At the critical moment, the 2 warriors inside will naturally help. Are they reliable? Zhang Chang was not particularly relieved and asked. Yes. Nodding heavily, He Jiming stomped his feet on the ground and rushed toward the palace protecting formation. Clatter! Seeing He Jiming rush out, the 4 or 5 Sage Realm warriors behind him also rushed out. Let's go all out. Zhang Chang gritted his teeth and decided to follow He Jiming to do something crazy this time. Zhang Kejuan was in the Emperor Palace. Zhang Chang was very clear that if he wanted to save Zhang Kejuan, he had to break the protective formation. If he could not even break the protective formation, it meant that he could not enter the Emperor Palace. If he could not enter the Emperor Palace, how could he save Zhang Kejuan? Rumble! 2 early-stage Sage Realm warriors and 4 or 5 early-stage Sage Realm warriors attacked together. The scene was very spectacular. All kinds of magic arts flew around, and the void was constantly being attacked, making waves of trembling sounds. I must recover as soon as possible. The more terrifying the attacks of He Jiming and the others were, the more worried Ningyu was. Although the human demon had promised that he would recover in an hour, who knew if there would be an accident? Accidents could happen at any time. If the human demon could not recover in the stipulated time, he would be in trouble. Although he was worried, Ningyu was very clear that he had no choice but to wait. Tick. Time passed minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes had passed. There were only 5 minutes left before the 1 hour agreed upon by the human demon. In the past 15 minutes, the one who had the biggest headache was Di Xiao. In order to delay for 15 minutes, Di Xiao had confronted 9 early-stage Sage Realm warriors at the same time. Fortunately, there is one person who is stupid. Turning his head to look at the flat-top sage next to him, Di Xiao took a deep breath and thought that it was a close call. Di Xiao thought that he could temporarily suppress the pressure of 9 sages with He Jiming and the law enforcement team of the high-level sections. Last 5 minutes. Di Xiao calmed everyone down while secretly calculating the time agreed upon with Ningyu. Swoosh. However, at this moment there was a sudden change. The flat-top sage, who had not made a move, suddenly made a move. The flat-top sage injected all the essence chi in his body into his right fist and suddenly punched the weakest area of the protective formation. It's over. The flat-top sage's action made Di Zhao's heart sink. He even stood on the spot in a daze. Outside, He Jiming and Zhang Chang attacked the protective formation with all their strength, while inside, the flat-top sage attacked the weak point. inside and outside. Chapter 1737. Chapter 1737. Chapter 1737. Strange. Crack. It turned out that Emperor Shao had been too optimistic. In less than 3 minutes, the palace protection formation of the Emperor Palace collapsed in just 1 minute. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After the palace protection formation collapsed, the furious He Jiming and Zhang Chong, as well as the 4 to 5 sage martialists behind them, rushed out. He Jiming and Zhang Chong's goals were clear. Zhang Chong did not stay there. Instead, he went deep into the Emperor Palace to find Zhang Kejuan. As for He Jiming, he stopped in front of Ningyu. He Jiming stared at Ningyu coldly and said in a deep voice, "You won't be able to escape today. I'll definitely turn you into ashes." Looking at He Jiming's cold eyes, Ningyu took a deep breath and said, "If you want to turn me into ashes, maybe." Ningyu stopped abruptly halfway through his sentence. Then, Ningyu's lips curled up slightly as he said to He Jiming, "I don't have wings, and I don't want to escape." Ningyu's sudden move made He Jiming feel a little confused. If He Jiming had been unable to do anything to Ningyu because of the palace protection formation earlier, then Ningyu's life was in He Jiming's hands now. How dare he be so arrogant when his life was in someone else's hands? In He Jiming's opinion, this was no longer arrogance. This was clearly stupidity. "You guys go over together and take him down." Although He Jiming looked down on Ningyu, he was still worried about taking the risk to attack Ningyu. His life was his. If he acted rashly and Ningyu had a backup plan, he would definitely be in trouble. Since the palace protection formation had been broken, it was best to let the original 10 sages test Ningyu's strength. "I'll go." When the flat-top sage heard He Jiming's words, he immediately felt that his opportunity had come. He responded and quickly dashed towards Ningyu at a terrifying speed. This time, the flat-top sage was just an insignificant person who had descended from a high-level plane. But small people also had big ambitions. Since he had already left a good impression in He Jiming's heart, the flat-top sage decided to follow up his victory and take down Ningyu in one fell swoop. As long as he could take down Ningyu, He Jiming would definitely regard him as a direct descendant of the direct descendant when they returned to the higher planes. He Jiming's position in the sect was not simple. The big shots behind him were the higher-ups in the sect. Now that he had a good relationship with He Jiming, no matter how he looked at it, he wouldn't lose out. "You overestimate yourself." Ningyu had a disdainful look on his face as he watched the flat-top saint charge towards him. "I didn't plan to deal with you at first, but you can't blame me since you came knocking on my door." Ha ha ha! The flat-top sage couldn't help but laugh maniacally when he heard Ningyu's words. After laughing maniacally, the flat-top sage sped up again and said sinisterly, "I hope you're not so stubborn. Di Shao, you can make your move now." Ningyu didn't have time to bicker with the flat-top sage. His soul force surged, and he sent a voice transmission to Di Shao. "He can die, but leave his corpse for me." Although the flat-top sage was despicable, Ningyu didn't wish for his corpse to be destroyed just like that. The corpse of a sage could be used to refine puppet. Ningyu's cultivation was only at the initial Sky Supreme realm, and he would have to face more and more powerhouses in the future. Moreover, the human demon wouldn't always be by his side. Under such circumstances, if he had a dozen sage-level puppets following him, Ningyu wouldn't have to fear even if he encountered another sage martialist. The corner of Di Zhao's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard Ningyu's instructions. He and the flat-top sage were both at the initial sage realm. Not only did Ningyu want him to kill the flat-top sage, but he also wanted him to keep the flat-top sage's corpse. How could there be such a good thing in this world? Unless he reached the intermediate sage realm, Ningyu's request was almost impossible to fulfill. "I'll try my best." After saying this, Di Shao immediately dashed out. Before the flat-top saint could reach Ningyu's side, he took the initiative to confront the flat-top saint. Rumble. Two early-stage sage experts were fighting. Moreover, it was a life-and-death battle. The scene became chaotic for a while. Damn it! Di Zhao's sudden attack left the flat-top sage dumbfounded. The flat-top sage was confident that he could defeat Di Zhao, but with He Jiming around, how would he dare to use his killer move? After cursing inwardly, the flat-top sage turned to look at He Jiming. His meaning was self-evident. The flat-top sage wanted to seek He Jiming's opinion. He Jiming had to give him an answer whether to kill or keep him alive. Let's keep him alive for now. He Jiming's face was ashen and gloomy to the extreme. Di Zhao had made such a huge mistake. Normally, he would be sentenced to death. But He Jiming knew very well that Di Zhao couldn't die. He had brought more than 10 sages down from the high-level planes with only 2 missions. Bringing Di Zhao back to a high-class realm was one of the 2 tasks. If Di Zhao was killed now, wouldn't it mean that he had failed this mission? Not long after arriving in the celestial spirit realm, failing a mission would have a huge impact. It would be fine if the people behind him could withstand the pressure. But if they couldn't, He Jiming was doomed. Perhaps the sect would send another team down. Understood. The flat-top sage nodded heavily after receiving He Jiming's reply. He felt a little more confident. No matter how one looked at it, it wasn't too difficult to just fight Di Zhao without killing him. Damn it, why am I not as smart as the flat-top sage? That's right, I should have done it. Now that the flat-top sage has taken all the benefits, won't we have to eat dirt? Eat dirt? At this rate, we won't even be able to eat dirt. In my opinion, we don't have to eat dirt at all. The flat-top sage's target is Ningyu. Now that he is being held back by Di Zhao, doesn't that mean that our chance has come? Rumble. The last martial artist's words made the rest of the martial artists change expressions. Wasn't that right? The flat-top sage's target was Ningyu, but he was stopped by Di Zhao. As long as they could take down Ningyu, He Jiming would definitely be very happy. If He Jiming was happy, they wouldn't have to worry about the flat-top sage's intelligence. Moreover, He Jiming's original words just now were, "All of you go together and take him down for me." If they attacked now, they wouldn't be scolded by He Jiming. Whoosh! They attacked as soon as they said they would. The remaining 9 early-stage sages, plus the 5 sages that He Jiming had brought, added up to a total of 14 sages, all of them charged towards Ningyu. With so many sages attacking together, it was a spectacular scene. Finally making a move, the 14 sages attacked together. Not only did Ningyu not escape, but his body slowly rose into the air. If one observed closely, one could see that Ningyu's expression was calm, without a trace of nervousness. Chapter 1738. Attack. What's going on? For some reason, He Jiming's heart tightened when he saw Ningyu's actions. Ningyu was only an initial stage heavenly supreme. How could he deal with 14 initial stage sage realm cultivators? Unless, He Jiming hurriedly released his perception. Retreat! He Jiming hastily shouted as soon as he released his perception and had yet to spread it in all directions. Whoosh! The 14 cultivators didn't follow He Jiming's order to retreat. Instead, they stayed in the air and looked back at He Jiming in confusion. They were all confused. They were about to catch Ningyu. Why did He Jiming tell them to retreat? Idiots! Trash! Retreat! Seeing the 14 warriors staring at him foolishly, He Jiming was so angry that he even cursed out loud. He Jiming didn't just sit and wait for death. He released his peak intermediate stage sage realm aura while dashing out, hoping to stop the human demon before he could make a move. That's right. He Jiming was furious because he had discovered the human demon hiding behind Ningyu when he released his perception. He Jiming hadn't taken the initiative to attack after breaking the palace protecting array. This was to prevent the human demon's sneak attack. However, He Jiming didn't expect the human demon to be hiding behind Ningyu. At the same time, He Jiming was slightly worried. It would be fine if the human demon had just appeared. However, if the human demon had been hiding behind Ningyu all along, the situation would become a little worse. After all, the human demon had been hiding behind Ningyu for so long. Didn't that mean that the human demon's concealment level was much higher than his? Puff, puff, puff. Even though He Jiming used his full strength, he still couldn't stop the human demon's powerful attack. In just an instant, the human demon appeared in front of the 14 cultivators and threw out 3 punches. The human demon's 3 punches were heavy and powerful. Each punch contained a terrifying force. 3 punches, and 3 initial stage Sage Realm cultivators died on the spot. Rumble. No matter how stupid the remaining 11 cultivators were, they reacted at this time. After a brief moment of panic, the remaining 11 martial artists attacked in unison and engaged in a great battle with the human demon. Idiot, get back here! When He Jiming saw that not only did the remaining 11 cultivators not retreat, but they also fought with the demonic humans, he was so shocked that his nose became crooked. He Jiming wouldn't have reacted this way if the human demon was just a mid-stage sage. Most importantly, the aura emanating from the human demon's body had reached the terrifying late-stage Sage Realm. 11 warriors of the early stage of the Sage Realm had no chance of winning against a warrior of the late stage of the Sage Realm. Poochie! Poochie! While He Jiming was speaking, another 2 martial artists were killed by the human demon. Of the 14 martial artists, 5 had died in an instant. This time, the remaining 9 martial artists had learned their lesson. They did not choose to fight head-on with the human demon, but instead fled in all directions. Where are you going? How could the human devil give these martial artists the chance to escape? He opened his mouth and let out a terrifying roar. Buzz! This roar came from the human demon's mouth. Like a stone thrown into a river, ripples spread out in all directions. Poo pu pu pu. This move of the human demons was indiscriminate. In the blink of an eye, the remaining 9 martial artists were all affected by the sound wave, and each of them coughed out a mouthful of blood. Stop right there! The sudden change caused He Jiming to go berserk. Taking a deep breath, He Jiming took out a scroll from his pocket and threw it at the human demon in midair. Retreat! Seeing the scroll in He Jiming's hand, the human demon's expression changed slightly. He grabbed Ning Yu and Di Xiao and quickly retreated. Boom! Just as the human demon and Ning Yu took a few steps back, the scroll exploded. Poo pu pu. The aftermath of the scroll explosion did not hurt Ning Yu, the human demon, and the rest. Instead, the few martial artists on his side coughed out blood. The 9 martial artists were already seriously injured by the human demon's sound wave attack. Now that they were accidentally injured by He Jiming, their auras fell to rock bottom. Now, He Jiming was left with 9 seriously injured primary stage sage martial artists and a flat-top sage who had sensed the danger and dodged in advance. Almost instantly, He Jiming's group's fighting strength dropped by a lot. If I don't get my revenge, I'm not human. He Jiming clenched his fists tightly, an extremely vicious expression on his face. He Jiming had never suffered this kind of humiliation even in a higher realm. Who would have thought that after coming to a lower realm like the immortal spirit realm, he would suffer setbacks again, and even lose many of his companions? He Jiming was a vengeful person. He definitely could not tolerate this. I'm sorry that you're not human anymore. At this time, a calm voice sounded in the area. Hearing this, He Jiming's expression changed, and his eyes stared straight ahead. When the scroll exploded, the human demon had disappeared with Ning Yu and Di Xiao without a trace. He Jiming did not expect the human demon to return as soon as the scroll exploded. The void split open, and a dozen martial artists appeared in He Jiming's vision. Zhang Chang. Seeing the familiar figure beside the human demon, He Jiming's jaw dropped, his face full of shock. He Jiming could not understand why Zhang Chang would collude with the human demon. Go! The human demon did not give He Jiming much time to think. He waved his hands slightly forward, and a low voice came from his mouth. Anyone who dares to resist will be killed without mercy. Swish, swish. As the human demon roared, a few martial artists beside him moved at the same time. The two figures at the front were Zhang Chang and Di Tianming. Zhang Chang and Di Tianming's target was not the early-stage sage, but He Jiming. Zhang Chang was a mid-stage sage, while Di Tianming was a peak early-stage sage. Although they could not kill He Jiming if they joined forces, they could still put up a fight. Senior human demon, how much longer can you last? Ningyu looked calm on the surface as he looked at the human demon beside him, but his heart was heavy. He was worried about the human demon because Ningyu knew what he had done. An hour later, the human demon recovered from the backlash. Even though he had recovered, the human demon was still a mid-stage sage. But in order to get through this crisis, the human demon had forcefully refined the remaining Qilin blood in his body. After refining the Qilin blood, the human demon's cultivation had reached the late-stage sage, the peak late-stage sage. However, this peak late-stage sage wasn't very stable. To be more precise, it showed the peak late-stage sage one moment, and the early-stage sage the next. Even so, the first thing the human demon did after recovering to the peak late-stage sage was to sneak attack Zhang Chang. Fortunately, Zhang Chang was too worried about Zhang Kejuan's safety, which gave the human demon the opportunity to successfully control Zhang Chang in his first sneak attack. After controlling Zhang Chang, the human demon wanted Zhang Chang to hide in the void and wait for an opportunity to attack. Unfortunately, the human demon had just killed 5 sages around He Jiming and heavily injured 9 sages when he felt his aura drop sharply. At this time, He Jiming took out a scroll. Chapter 1739. Away. He Jiming probably won't continue fighting. The human demon didn't answer Ningyu directly. Instead, he looked at the battlefield in the distance and said in a low voice, "As long as I show a strong desire to fight, He Jiming will definitely retreat." Retreat? Ningyu's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly followed the human demon's line of sight. With He Jiming's strength and his trump card, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to deal with Zhang Chang and Di Tianming. But most importantly, the human demon was all around. With the unknown factor of the human demon, He Jiming didn't dare use his trump card. Since he couldn't use his trump card, He Jiming was under a lot of pressure. Rumble. While Ningyu was still observing, the outcome of the battle on the other side had already been decided. In just a few minutes, a total of 10 early-stage sage cultivators, including the flat-top sage, were all killed. Damn it! Although He Jiming was entangled with Zhang Chang, the deaths of the flat-top sage and the others didn't escape his eyes. He Jiming clenched his fists tightly and glared at the human demon. Then, he immediately turned around and flew toward the periphery of the Emperor Palace. He Jiming really wanted to use his last trump card, but when he thought of his mission in the immortal spirit realm, he quickly gave up on the idea. He Jiming's thoughts were very simple. Where there's life, there's hope. As long as he could retreat successfully this time, there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with the human demon and the others in the future. He Jiming was a mid-stage sage. If he wanted to leave, Zhang Chang and Di Tianming naturally wouldn't be able to stop him. Almost in an instant, He Jiming disappeared without a trace. As soon as He Jiming's foot disappeared, the human demon spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. At the same time, the human demon's aura dropped again. In just a minute, the human demon's aura dropped from the sage realm to the supremacy realm. Moreover, he was a human supremacy. In just a minute, his aura had dropped from the sage realm to the human supremacy realm. It could only be described as terrifying. Di Tianming, stand guard here. The rest follow me. Human Demon turned around and walked toward the main hall of the Emperor Divine Palace with his shaky body. On the way to the main hall of Emperor Celestial Palace, fortunately, Ning Yu supported Human Demon in time. Otherwise, with Human Demon's current state, there was no way he could reach the main hall. In the main hall, Ning Yu and Zhang Chang stood on either side of the Human Demon, while Di Xiao and the other sages stood slightly behind. Ning Yu frowned as he looked at the Human Demon whose aura continued to drop. He asked in a low voice, "How confident are you?" Very low. Although Ning Yu didn't say who he was asking, Zhang Chang knew very well that Ning Yu must be asking him. Zhang Chang didn't dare to be negligent. First, he used his perception to probe the Human Demon. Then, he slightly frowned and said, "I can only suppress the energy seal that is about to explode in his body. As for the other terrifying energy in his body, I can't control it. You first find a way to suppress the energy seal in his body. As for the other terrifying energy, I'll think of a way." Ning Yu knew that Zhang Chang couldn't cure Human Demon, so he wasn't particularly disappointed with Zhang Chang's answer. At the very least, Zhang Chang could suppress the energy seal in Human Demon's body so that Human Demon wouldn't die immediately. As for the other energy in Human Demon's body, which was the backlash from the Qilin origin blood, only Ning Yu could think of a way to deal with it. Without wasting any time, Ning Yu directly turned around and walked out of the main hall. However, before Ning Yu could leave the main hall, several cold rays of light flew out from Human Demon's body and entered Ning Yu's mind in the blink of an eye. Zhang Chang Yu, the sudden change caused Ning Yu's expression to change dramatically. He hurriedly turned around and shouted. However, as soon as Ning Yu turned around, his words came to an abrupt halt. Ning Yu originally thought that the cold rays that entered his mind were Zhang Chang's doing, but now it seemed that the cold rays that entered his body were Human Demon's doing. From now on, Zhang Chang and the others' life and death are completely in your hands. Taking a deep breath, Human Demon used all his strength to say, "After I die, please preserve my body. In the future, when you go to a higher plane, take me with you and find a place to bury me. It'll be like a fallen leaf returning to its root. Zhang Chang, I hope you'll do your best." Ning Yu didn't respond to Human Demon. Instead, he stared at Zhang Chang and said coldly, "If Senior Human Demon dies before I return, I'll make you pay with your life." Swish. Leaving behind these cold words, Ning Yu turned around and flew out of the main hall. When he left the main hall, Ning Yu called Di Xiao and the other 5 sages along. Just out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's mouth. Looking at Ning Yu's departing figure, Zhang Chang's entire person became very dispirited. Although Human Demon couldn't control his life and death, Ning Yu could. Therefore, for the sake of his own life, Zhang Chang could only risk his life to save Human Demon. At the same time, Zhang Chang was still praying that Human Demon would be lucky enough to hold on until Ning Yu returned. Otherwise, when Ning Yu returned, he would definitely be in trouble. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, a group of 6 or 7 warriors appeared in front of the Emperor Palace's dungeon. Di Xiao, go open the dungeon. Ning Yu didn't waste any time as he pointed at the dungeon door in front of him and said. Although Di Xiao was very unwilling, he had to bow under the eaves. He could only bite the bullet and go to the dungeon. Creak. Under Di Xiao's efforts, the thick dungeon door was quickly opened. "The 5 of you lead the way. Di Xiao, follow beside me." Ning Yu looked at the 5 sages beside him and said in a deep voice, "Without my permission, no one is allowed to stop." Whoosh. The 5 sages were quite open-minded. Without the slightest hesitation, they immediately entered the dungeon. "Let's go too." After the 5 sages entered the dungeon, Ning Yu swept an indifferent glance at Di Xiao and said, "You go in front of me." "No problem." At this time, Di Xiao knew that he couldn't show any dissatisfaction. Ning Yu's nerves were highly tensed. If he offended Ning Yu now, it was destined that he wouldn't have a good ending. Di Shao didn't want to use his childishness to challenge Ning Yu's bottom line. Compared to the previous time, this time, Ning Yu and the rest were very familiar with the path and their journey was smooth. Not long after, Ning Yu and the rest arrived at the end of the narrow passage. In front of them was a spacious area. Where did the owner of the ascending immortal grass go? Ning Yu furrowed his brows as he looked at the empty area. He released his perception slightly. Previously, Ning Yu and the rest had seen the owner of the ascending immortal grass here. Originally, Ning Yu thought that he would be able to see the owner this time. However, the current situation made Ning Yu's face a little ugly. If they couldn't find the owner of the ascending immortal grass, they wouldn't be able to find the ascending immortal grass. If they couldn't find the ascending immortal grass, the human demon would definitely be doomed. Chapter 1740. A seeming compromise. If the human devil could hold on for a day or two, Ning Yu definitely wouldn't be as worried as he was now. However, the current situation did not allow Ning Yu to think too much. He could only place his hopes on the ascending immortal grass. Attack with all your might. Ning Yu's expression was solemn. He clenched his right fist and punched out. Rumble. Ning Yu had used up almost all of his strength in this attack. Even though the power of Ning Yu's attack was already very strong, it didn't even cause a ripple in the open space in front of him. Rumble. Fortunately, seeing Ning Yu's attack, Di Shao and the other 5 sages did not stop and also attacked with all their might. For a time, all kinds of spell techniques flew about in the open space ahead, and the void trembled. Stop! Only after Ning Yu and the others had bombarded the area with all their might for 10 minutes did a cry for mercy come from the empty area. Then, a white-haired figure slowly appeared in front of Ning Yu and the others. You're finally willing to show yourself. Ning Yu was a little surprised to see the white-haired old man appear out of thin air. Not long ago, when he came here with the human devil, the white-haired old man was still a late-stage sage. But this time, the white-haired old man's cultivation was only at the early stage of the sage realm. Naturally, Ning Yu was not afraid of the white-haired old man at the early stage of the sage realm. After all, there were 6 early-stage Saint Realm warriors on his side, including Di Shao. Ning Yu was very confident that the 6 initial-stage Sage Realm warriors would go up against a white-haired old man. What exactly do all of you want? I'm warning all of you, if you dare. The white-haired old man viciously said after seeing that Ning Yu's group had stopped their attacks. Boom! However, before the white-haired old man could finish his vicious words, Ning Yu and Di Shao launched another attack. A terrifying barrage of spell techniques hurtled toward the white-haired old man from all directions. I can't believe it! Seeing Ning Yu and the others attacking without any regard for their lives, the white-haired old man cursed on the spot and hurriedly began to block. However, with the white-haired old man's current strength, it was very difficult for him to withstand the full-force attack of 6 sages. Pu. Almost every minute, the white-haired old man would spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. Hold on. We can discuss this. 3 minutes later, the white-haired old man hurriedly said, I can give you the immortal ascension grass if you want it. Ning Yu slightly raised his right hand, signaling Di Shao and the others to stop their attacks. With a sharp gaze, Ning Yu stared at the white-haired old man and said, Throw the immortal ascension grass over, and we will leave immediately. Let's make a deal, as long as you. Seeing that Ning Yu's group had stopped attacking, the white-haired elder's eyes rotated as he spoke. However, before the white-haired old man could finish his sentence, he saw Ning Yu's right hand pressing down abruptly. This discovery made the white-haired old man turn pale on the spot, and he immediately changed his words. I am affected by the formation in the dungeon, so I can only stay in this spacious area. If you want the immortal ascension grass, you can come and get it yourself. As he spoke, the white-haired old man took out the immortal ascension grass and threw it at the same time. Unfortunately, even though the white-haired old man used all his strength, he still could not throw the immortal ascension grass to Ningyu's side. He only managed to throw it half a meter away. Go over. Although Ningyu knew that the white-haired old man would not be so kind, the current situation did not allow him to think too much. Even though Ningyu really wanted the immortal ascension grass, he did not lose his rationality. Ningyu did not go over himself. Instead, he let a slightly plump early-stage sage go over. The plump sage dared not delay. After hearing Ningyu's words, he dashed toward the white-haired old man without stopping. Swoosh! The plump sage was very fast. However, as soon as he dashed into the spacious area, he seemed to have encountered some kind of barrier and stopped abruptly in mid-air. What the hell is going on? Ningyu's face turned extremely cold. He stared at the white-haired old man and said coldly, I hope you can give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will flatten this place even if I can't get the immortal ascension grass. I'm innocent. This has nothing to do with me. Seeing that Ningyu was enraged, the white-haired old man cried out again. It's all the fault of the founder of the Emperor Divine Palace. He set up many formations here to prevent me from leaving. Now, it has become an obstacle for you to get the immortal ascension grass. Attack. Beat him to death. Ningyu did not waste any time talking to the white-haired old man. His tone was cold as a violent, murderous intent emanated from his body. Rumble. Di Shao and the other 4 sage martialists attacked at the same time when they heard Ningyu's cold voice. At this moment, no one held back. Several terrifying spell techniques rained down on the white-haired old man from all directions. In order to teach the white-haired old man a lesson, Ningyu gave the order to kill him. No matter how much the white-haired old man begged for mercy, they could not stop attacking. The lives of Di Shao and the others were in the hands of Ningyu. They did not dare to delay whatever Ningyu told them to do. The white-haired old man knew that Ningyu was completely enraged this time. Therefore, he did not beg for mercy. Instead, he used his trump card. The white-haired old man must have a trump card to hide in the dungeon for such a long time. The white-haired old man spat out blood repeatedly just now because he did not use his trump card. Otherwise, the white-haired old man would not have spat out blood. In the spacious area, the white-haired old man spread his arms and his body spun at a terrifying speed. The white-haired old man was like a spinning top. Every time an attack landed on his body, his speed would increase. In the end, the white-haired old man's speed reached a terrifying level. It was impossible to see the white-haired old man's figure with the naked eye. Kid, don't think that I'm afraid of you. If you don't do as I say, you will never get the ascending immortal grass. The white-haired old man spun quickly and said in a sinister voice, I didn't lie to you about one thing. The founder of Emperor Divine Palace did set up many formations here. However, the formations he left behind can only stop martial artists above the sage realm from getting close to me. They cannot stop martial artists below the sage realm from getting close to me. Hearing the white-haired old man's words, Ningyu raised his eyebrows and said, You want to control me? The white-haired old man had already said this. If Ningyu still did not understand, it would be a little unreasonable. You are very smart. The white-haired old man curled his lips and said, As long as you are obedient, I promise not to kill you. Moreover, I will give you half of the ascending immortal grass. Ningyu's face was gloomy and he was struggling internally. The current situation was very clear. If he did not agree to the white-haired old man's request, he could only waste time here. Since he did not know how long the white-haired old man could last, Ningyu did not dare to gamble with the human demon's life. The human demon needed the ascending immortal grass. There was no time to waste. However, Ningyu was worried that the white-haired old man would cheat and end up empty-handed. All right, I promise you. Chapter 1741. Leave the dungeon. Whoosh. Almost as soon as Ningyu agreed, the white-haired elder and Di Shao stopped fighting. Among them, the white-haired old man waved at Ningyu and said, "Come here first." Ningyu did not hesitate. He moved his feet and walked straight towards the white-haired old man. Boom! As soon as they entered the spacious area, Ningyu's expression changed slightly. Pressure. The pressure coming from all directions caused Ningyu's footsteps to falter. With every step he took, the pressure doubled. Ningyu turned his head to look at the trapped plump saint. He took a deep breath and channeled all the primordial energy in his body into his ankle, increasing his speed slightly. Not simple. When the white-haired old man saw that Ningyu did not slow down but instead increased his speed, he nodded lightly. The white-haired elder knew very well that any other early-stage Sky Supreme would have been squashed into a meat patty by now. The fact that Ningyu could move forward under such immense pressure was enough to prove Ningyu's strength. Maybe he can really take me out. The white-haired old man looked very calm on the surface, but he was actually very nervous. Last time, he did not grasp the opportunity, causing his cultivation to drop from the late stage of the Saint Realm to the early stage of the Saint Realm in a short period of time. If he were to fail to grasp this opportunity, it wouldn't be long before his cultivation would fall to the utmost exalted level. Once his cultivation dropped to the Supreme Being realm, his life would come to an end. The white-haired old man knew the consequences, so he made up his mind this time that he must hitch a ride with Ningyu. Stop! Although he had firmly believed in Ningyu, the white-haired old man did not lose his rationality. His eyes were cold. When Ningyu was only a few steps away from him, he said in a low voice, "I don't want to say anything unnecessary. If you bring me out of the dungeon, I will give you half a stalk of Ascension Immortal Grass." This might be a little difficult. Ningyu stopped according to the old man's request and spread his hands out. "I'm only an initial phase Heavenly Sovereign. I'm afraid that it's," although Ningyu did not continue, his meaning was very clear. "You don't have to worry about that. In short, do you agree or not?" The white-haired old man asked. "I agree." Ningyu nodded. "Tell me, what do you want me to do?" "I'll enter your body." The white-haired old man continued. "In this region, an initial phase Heavenly Sovereign like you is comparable to a late phase Saint Realm cultivator. When the founder of the Emperor Palace set up the spiritual array, he did not consider Heavenly Sovereigns, which gave me an opportunity. After I enter your body, I will do my best to hide myself. All of my aura will be hidden. As long as the surrounding formations cannot detect my existence, they will naturally not attack." Ningyu frowned. The white-haired old man said it casually, but Ningyu knew that this matter was very dangerous. If anything went wrong, even he would be killed by the spiritual array. However, the situation on the human demon's side was not optimistic. Ningyu could only risk his life. "Okay, I promise you." Ningyu's expression was solemn. "I hope you can keep your promise and give me half of the immortal ascension grass after we leave the dungeon." "Ha ha, I will not go back on my words." The white-haired old man laughed wildly. "Now, open your mind and let me enter your body." "No problem." As he spoke, Ningyu completely opened his mind. Swish. Sensing that Ningyu had opened his mind, the white-haired old man immediately turned into a shadow and entered Ningyu's body. Chi. The process of the white-haired old man entering Ningyu's body was not as easy as it seemed. It seemed that the formations left behind by the founder of Emperor God Palace had discovered the white-haired old man's intentions. As the white-haired old man was moving forward, a few formations hidden in the void attacked at the same time. Several cold lights shot towards the white-haired old man. Fortunately, the white-haired old man was well prepared. Among the several cold lights, only a few hit the white-haired old man. However, no matter how weak the white-haired old man was, he still had the cultivation of an early-stage sage. A few rays of cold light couldn't hurt him at all. Swoosh. The white-haired old man was very fast. In just a second, he entered Ning Yu's body. Leave the dungeon quickly. After entering Ning Yu's body, the white-haired old man's anxious words came out of his mouth. Retreat. At this moment, Ning Yu did not dare to go against the white-haired old man. Hearing the white-haired old man's words, Ning Yu immediately turned around and rushed out of the dungeon. Following closely behind Ning Yu were Di Shao and the other 5 sages. Initially, Fat Sage was trapped in the open area. However, as soon as the white-haired old man left, he regained his freedom and retreated from the open area. Swish, swish, swish. Inside the dungeon, Ning Yu was in front while Di Shao and the 5 sages were behind him. As Ning Yu's heart was tied to the human demon, he did not stop at all. He immediately unleashed his speed to the extreme and appeared outside the dungeon before long. As soon as he left the dungeon, Ning Yu suddenly stopped. I brought you out of the dungeon. Can you give me half of the ascension herb now? Ning Yu took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Give you the ascension herb? Have you lost your mind? A discordant voice came from the white-haired old man. You better behave yourself and find me some good stuff. Otherwise, I'll turn you into an idiot. What do you want? Ning Yu was so angry that his chest was heaving up and down as he said coldly. Immortal crystals, energy stones. The white-haired old man opened his mouth and listed a lot of precious items. Without a doubt, all of these items contained terrifying energy. Although he was out of the dungeon, the white-haired old man's cultivation was only at the early sage realm. In order to recover to the late sage realm as soon as possible, the white-haired old man naturally needed some good stuff. Ning Yu, on the other hand, had undoubtedly become a sucker. In the white-haired old man's opinion, Ning Yu's identity was not simple since he could order Di Shao and the others with his early heavenly supreme cultivation, using the emperor to order the nobles. The white-haired old man's idea was simple. He wanted to control Ning Yu and use Ning Yu's resources to plunder treasures. As long as he could recover to the late sage realm, the white-haired old man could go anywhere in the world. Di Shao, take them to Emperor God Palace and bring me all the treasures. Ning Yu looked a little disappointed, but he forced himself to say, I don't want anyone else to know about this except for the few of you. Understood. Di Shao could not wait for Ning Yu to be controlled by the white-haired old man. In that case, he might be able to escape. Now that Ning Yu asked him to plunder treasures, he would definitely not refuse. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, not only did Di Shao leave, but the other 5 sages were also sent away by Ning Yu. I really need the ascension herb. I hope you. After Di Shao and the others left, Ning Yu tried to calm himself down and said, Don't talk nonsense with me. The white-haired old man interrupted Ning Yu and said coldly, Now, immediately, take me to see the human demon you mentioned. Chapter 1742. Chapter 1742. Chapter 1742 appear simultaneously. How could I dare to play tricks in front of you? Even if you gave me 10 guts, I wouldn't have that thought. Ning Yu patted his chest and promised, I finally understand now. If I follow you, stop pretending in front of me. I won't fall for it. The white-haired elder once again interrupted Ning Yu's words. I'll give you 1 minute to find the human demon. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Whoosh! Ning Yu stomped on the ground and dashed forward. He had no choice but to lower his head when he was under the eaves. Moreover, Ning Yu had already made preparations. He did not want to fail at this time. The distance from the dungeon to the main hall of the Emperor Divine Palace was not particularly far. Before long, Ning Yu appeared in front of the main hall. You're finally back. Zhang Chang was overjoyed to see Ning Yu in the hall. Human demon's condition was getting worse. Zhang Chang was worried that he wouldn't be able to hold on until Ning Yu returned. Now that Ning Yu had returned safely, Zhang Chang was relieved. Middle Stage Saint. The white-haired old man hiding in Ning Yu's body was naturally aware of Zhang Chang's cultivation. To be honest, when the white-haired old man found that Zhang Chang was a warrior at the middle stage of the sage realm, the contempt in his heart immediately disappeared. Originally, the white-haired old man wanted to see the human demon because he guessed that the human demon must be seriously injured. Now Zhang Chang's appearance was a variable. The white-haired old man didn't want Zhang Chang to find out that he was hiding in Ning Yu's body, so he guarded his mind and cut off all contact with the outside world. Go and stand guard in front of the main hall. The white-haired old man cutting off contact with the outside world naturally could not be hidden from Ning Yu. However, Ning Yu was not in a hurry. He waved his hand at Zhang Chang and said, "No one can come in without my permission." "All right." Zhang Chang couldn't wait to leave. Hearing Ning Yu's words, he stepped on the ground and left the hall in an instant. Ascension Pagoda. Seeing that Zhang Chang had left, Ning Yu reached into his robe and took out the Tower of Yuzu. He exerted a little force in his palm, and the Tower of Ascension suddenly expanded. As for Ning Yu, he grabbed the human demon and entered the Tower of Yuzu. On the first floor of the Yuzuan Pagoda, Ning Yu laid the human demon flat on the ground and extended his perception to check on the injuries within the human demon. "Humph! What's the relationship between you and that sage middle-stage warrior?" Before Ning Yu's perception could enter the human devil's body, the white-haired old man's cold snort rang out. "You'd better answer honestly. Otherwise you know the consequences. He's Ogre's friend." Ning Yu rolled his eyes and said, "There's an energy seal in the demonic human's body, and there's also the Qilint's blood left. If he comes over, stop. The white-haired old man's eyes lit up as he said, "You're saying that the demonic human has the blood of a Qilin?" In fact, it was no wonder that the white-haired elder would have such a reaction. What was the Qilint's blood? It was the most precious thing in a Qilint's body. A drop of Qilint's blood could allow him to recover to his peak state. The white-haired elder's mind became active. If he could obtain the Qilint's blood, he could recover to his peak state. Once he recovered to his peak state, he could even seek revenge on the founder of Divine Emperor Palace. Thinking of this, the white-haired elder said coldly, "Open your mind, I want to go out. I've said everything I need to say. Don't kill me." Ning Yu appeared terrified and said anxiously, "I'll get Di Shao and the others to find immortal crystals, energy stones, magic treasures, and pills for you." "What are you talking about? Hurry up and open your mind. Do you believe that I'll take your life if you say another word?" The white-haired elder said impatiently. "All right." After being scolded by the white-haired elder, Ning Yu obediently opened his mind. Whoosh! Ning Yu had just relaxed his mind when the white-haired old man's figure flashed and rushed out from Ning Yu's body. Seeing the white-haired elder rush out, the corner of Ning Yu's mouth curled up unnaturally. "It really is the Qilint's blood." The white-haired elder had no time to observe Ning Yu. All his attention was on the human demon. The temptation of the Qilint's blood was much greater than Ning Yu's. Now, while the white-haired elder's attention was on the Qilint's blood, Ning Yu grabbed the human demon, tore the void, and dove in. "Where do you think you're going? How could the white-haired elder let Ning Yu take the human demon away?" He shouted explosively, and then his figure flashed as he chased after Ning Yu. Bang! The white-haired elder was so fast that he arrived at the place where Ning Yu disappeared in an instant. However, when the white-haired elder tried to tear the void, he encountered a problem. No matter how hard he tried, he could not tear the void. "What's going on?" The white-haired elder was dumbfounded. What kind of void was so hard that even he could not tear it? Buzz! Just as the white-haired old man was feeling puzzled, the scene around him suddenly changed dramatically. The originally spacious area became extremely narrow. The white-haired elder clearly realized that he was not in the hall, but in a sealed space. Whoosh! The enraged white-haired old man waved his hands repeatedly and suddenly blasted out several palm prints. The palm prints scattered in midair and blasted in all directions. Rumble! The palm prints exploded, but the sealed space could not be blasted open. Ningyu, hurry up and come out! The white-haired elder's eyes were cold as he said in a deep voice, "Didn't you want the immortal ascension grass? I'll count to 3. If you don't come out by then, I'll destroy the immortal ascension grass. If you dare to destroy the immortal ascension grass, I'll dare to trap you here for the rest of your life." As soon as the white-haired elder's voice fell, an indifferent voice sounded in the area. Swoosh! The white-haired elder's expression changed instantly. "Why hide in the void? Come out and see me if you can." The white-haired elder took a deep breath and shouted at the void, "If you want the immortal ascension grass, you have to have the ability first." The white-haired elder's tone was very firm. He knew that the human demon was seriously injured and needed the immortal ascension grass urgently. Without the immortal ascension grass, the human demon would most likely be finished. As long as he could drag it out for a few minutes, Ningyu would definitely beg for mercy. The white-haired elder had made up his mind that he would not hand over the immortal ascension grass no matter what. He would stay here and waste time with Ningyu to see who could outlast the other. Ningyu did not want to waste time here. As he opened the ascension tower to let Zhang Chang in, he contacted the little Qilin in the Qilin ring. Zhang Chang's cultivation was mid-stage sage, and the little Qilin had also recovered to early-stage sage. As long as Zhang Chang and the little Qilin appeared, and this was the ascension tower, Ningyu was confident that he could take down the white-haired elder. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhang Chang was the first to appear. He was originally outside the hall. After hearing Ningyu's instructions, he only took a few seconds to enter the first floor of the Ascension Tower. As for the little Qilin, it was already in the Ascension Tower, so it appeared even faster than Zhang Chang. Qilin. Chapter 1743. Chapter 1743. Chapter 1743. Despair. The Qilin was an ancient divine beast. No matter where it was rare. Now that a Qilin had appeared in front of him, how could the white-haired elder not be shocked? However, being shocked was just being shocked. At this time, the white-haired old man did not dare to panic. Right now, he could only exert the strength of an early-stage sage. Facing Zhang Chang, who was at the middle-stage sage, and the small Qilin, who was at the early-stage sage, was still under great pressure. If he angered Zhang Chang and little Qilin, he would not be able to bear the consequences. I will give you one last chance. Hand over the immortal ascension grass. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. While the white-haired old man was still in shock, Ningyu's calm voice echoed once again. Ningyu did not care whether the white-haired old man was shocked or not. Ningyu was only concerned about one thing, and that was whether the white-haired old man would hand over the ascending immortal grass. After all, the human demon's current situation was extremely dangerous. Don't talk nonsense with me. As long as the ascending immortal grass is in my hands, I don't believe that you will dare to do anything to me. The white-haired elder's eyes were cold, and he said in a low voice, "If you really provoke me, I will destroy the immortal ascension grass immediately." As he spoke, the white-haired old man tightened his grip on the immortal ascension grass. Fortunately, the immortal ascension grass was not an ordinary medicinal herb. Otherwise, with the strength of the white-haired old man, it would have been squeezed into two halves. Zhang Chang, what are you waiting for? Do you need me to teach you how to do it? A cold voice resounded in the first level of the Yuzuan pagoda. Ningyu knew very well that he couldn't drag things out any longer. If he couldn't get the immortal ascension grass within 3 minutes, then the human demon would definitely be finished. Would the white-haired old man take out the immortal ascension grass after delaying him for 3 minutes? The answer was obviously no. Therefore, Ningyu decisively ordered Zhang Chang to attack the white-haired old man. Ningyu did not believe that the white-haired old man had the courage to destroy the ascending immortal grass with his own hands. After all, as long as the white-haired old man had the immortal ascension grass, his life would be guaranteed. Once he destroyed the immortal ascension grass, he would be done for. Don't get too full of yourself. If you really annoy me, seeing Zhang Chang rushing towards him, the white-haired old man's expression changed, and he couldn't help but shout. However, before the white-haired old man could finish his sentence, he stopped abruptly and hurriedly cast a spell to counter Zhang Chang. Zhang Chang only listened to Ningyu's orders. If Ningyu asked him to attack the white-haired old man, he would definitely not hold back. Although Zhang Chang didn't know how the white-haired old man had offended Ningyu, he knew that if the white-haired old man didn't hand over the immortal ascension grass, he would be in deep trouble. At the same time, when Zhang Chang attacked the white-haired old man, he was careful. He had to do everything he could to obtain the ascension immortal grass. Zhang Chang had witnessed Ningyu's attitude towards the immortal ascension grass. Now that his life was in Ningyu's hands, if he could do something for Ningyu at this time, perhaps Ningyu's impression of him would be much better. After all, Ningyu was still hostile towards him. Rumble. Zhang Chang's cultivation was at the sage intermediate stage. When he attacked with his full strength, the white-haired old man could only defend himself. Coupled with the little Kailan's help from the side, the white-haired old man was forced to retreat. Facing Zhang Chang and the little Kailan alone, the white-haired old man felt like crying. In fact, Ningyu's guess was right. The white-haired old man really didn't dare to completely fall out with Ningyu and destroy the immortal ascension grass. Since he didn't dare to destroy the immortal ascension grass, there was only one way left for the white-haired old man. Compromise. As long as he compromised with Ningyu, Ningyu definitely wouldn't kill him. At that time, the white-haired old man could at least keep his life. However, the white-haired old man wouldn't agree to compromise no matter what. In the white-haired old man's mind, even if he wanted to compromise, he had to drag it out for tens of minutes. Thinking of this, the white-haired old man hurriedly displayed his trump card and forced Zhang Chang and the little Kailan to retreat. Waving the immortal ascension grass in his hand, the white-haired old man said coldly, "If anyone dares to take another step, I promise," swoosh. Zhang Chang didn't care what the white-haired old man was promising. Zhang Chang only knew that this was the best opportunity to obtain the immortal ascension grass. If he missed this opportunity, there wouldn't be another one. Zhang Chang gritted his teeth and immediately ignited his essence chi and surprise. He didn't hesitate to use the blood shield technique to get close to the white-haired old man. Bam! Zhang Chang's speed was very fast. Before the white-haired old man finished his sentence, he appeared in front of him. Zhang Chang clenched his right fist, and while the white-haired old man wasn't paying attention, he punched the white-haired old man's wrist. The intense pain from his wrist caused the white-haired old man's wrist to loosen, and the immortal ascension grass fell to the ground. "Get out of my way!" The white-haired old man was indeed an old fox who had lived for many years. The moment the immortal ascension grass fell from his hand, he reacted and punched Zhang Chang with violent essence chi. The current situation was very clear. If Zhang Chang wanted the immortal ascension grass, he would definitely have to withstand the white-haired old man's full force attack. If he didn't want it, he could naturally avoid it. Retreat. In a flash, Zhang Chang made a decision. Retreat. Although Ningyu would bear a grudge against him if he retreated now, he wouldn't lose his life. If he didn't retreat, there was a high chance that he would be killed by the white-haired old man's punch. After all, the white-haired old man's full-force attack was not to be underestimated. You want to fight with me? You're still too inexperienced." Seeing Zhang Chang retreat, the white-haired old man's lips curled up and he sneered, "As long as I'm here today, no one can take the immortal ascension grass away." Swoosh. As it turned out, the white-haired old man was happy a little too early. Zhang Chang chose to retreat, but the little Kailan didn't. Moreover, the white-haired old man's attention was completely attracted by Zhang Chang, which gave the little Kailan an opportunity. Almost instantly, the little Kailan appeared in front of the white-haired old man. With a flick of its tail, the little Kailan directly flung the immortal ascension grass to the other side. No! Seeing the immortal ascension grass being flung away by the little Kailan, the white-haired old man's pupils shrank and he let out a hysterical roar. The white-haired old man knew what the consequences would be if the immortal ascension grass was snatched away at this time. Once Ningyu obtained the immortal ascension grass, what awaited him next would definitely be death. The white-haired old man clenched his fists tightly. He did not have time to care about Zhang Chang. Instead, he turned around and rushed towards the immortal ascension grass. The white-haired old man's idea was very simple. Snatch the immortal ascension grass. Crack. But how could Ningyu possibly give the white-haired old man the chance? This was the Tower of Ascension. The void of the first level was completely under Ningyu's control. Originally, with the immortal ascension grass on the white-haired old man, Ningyu did not dare to use the Tower of Ascension. He was afraid that the white-haired old man would discover some clues and be driven to desperate action. But now, Ningyu completely had no apprehensions in his heart. The void tore apart and a palm reached out from the crack. It grabbed the immortal ascension grass and dragged it in. Ah! Seeing the immortal ascension grass disappear with his own eyes, the white-haired old man's eyes bulged and he could not help but scream. The white-haired old man could practically predict his following fate. Chapter 1744. A gray-robed elder who, on the second floor of the Tower of Ascension. As he stared at the immortal ascension herb in his hand, Ningyu heaved a sigh of relief. His tensed nerves relaxed a little. Ningyu was very clear about the human demon's condition. As long as he had the immortal ascension grass, there was a high chance that he could be cured. Senior, I've brought the ascending immortal grass. What should I do now? Quickly calming down, Ningyu brought the immortal ascension grass to the human demon and asked, "Should I grind the immortal ascension grass for you to eat? Just swallow it." Human devil used all his strength to open his mouth and spoke in a barely audible voice. Okay, I'll give it to you now." Ningyu hurriedly nodded and brought the whole immortal ascension grass to the human devil's mouth. 1/3, although the human demon didn't open his eyes, his perception was still there. Through his senses, the human devil knew that Ningyu wanted to feed him the entire ascending immortal grass. Human demon understood his own situation better than anyone else. Actually, he felt that 1/3 of the ascension immortal grass was a little too much. No problem. Ningyu casually tore off a portion of the immortal ascension grass. Then, he brought the rest of the immortal ascension grass to the human devil's mouth. The moment the immortal ascension grass entered his stomach, the human demon's expression turned ugly. Poochie. A second later, the human devil coughed up a mouthful of blood, looking even weaker than before. "Senior, what should I do?" Seeing that the human demon had vomited black blood, Ningyu's heart, which had just relaxed, tensed up again. At this moment, Ningyu even had some doubts about the effects of the immortal ascension grass. It was said that the immortal ascension grass was an extremely precious medicinal herb. Even in high-grade plains, it was a rare commodity. However, not only did this rare commodity not improve the human demon's condition, it instead caused him to spit out a mouthful of black blood. How could Ningyu not be puzzled? "Help me refine the immortal ascension grass." The human devil opened his mouth, and an extremely weak voice came out from it. Hearing this, Ningyu hastily sat cross-legged behind the human devil and placed his hands on its back. Ningyu might not be able to help much with other things, but refining the immortal ascension grass wasn't a problem for Ningyu. Chi. Ningyu mobilized all the energy in his body and gathered it in his palm. Then, it entered the human devil's body through his back. In order to help the human demon refine the immortal ascension grass as quickly as possible, Ning Yu not only used his Yuan Qi, he even used his soul force without holding back. With the help of his soul power and essence energy, the immortal ascension grass in the human demon's body began to sizzle. The immortal ascension grass was an extremely precious medicinal herb. Even though Ning Yu used all his strength to refine it, he still couldn't make much progress. Half an hour. In half an hour, Ning Yu had only refined a little bit of the ascending immortal grass. But the bit of immortal ascension grass that Ning Yu had refined was clearly of use. At the very least, the human demon's complexion was much better, and his voice wasn't as weak as before. Ning Yu, I already said that a third of the immortal ascension grass was enough. Why did you still give me half? Feeling the size of the immortal ascension grass in his body, the human demon's expression turned solemn. Do you know how important the rest of the immortal ascension grass is to you? As long as you can find a few more suitable herbs, I can even help you concoct a medicinal liquid that can allow you to directly advance from the early stage to the peak of the Sky Supreme realm, or even the half-sage realm. Hearing the human demon's words, Ning Yu rolled his eyes helplessly. How could Ning Yu not know the importance of the immortal ascension grass? But in Ning Yu's heart, the human demon was just as important. His importance far surpassed the immortal ascension grass. The immortal ascension grass was an external object. If it was gone, it could be found again. But if the human demon died, he would be gone. Moreover, the human demon had helped him a lot recently. Without the human demon, he would have died a long time ago. How could he have obtained the immortal ascension grass? Senior, don't be angry. Isn't it just a stalk of immortal ascension grass? Ning Yu explained. Even the white-haired elder is under my control. When the time comes, I'll force him to tell me where he got the immortal ascension grass. Why would I worry about not being able to find it then? Forget it. Say what you want. It's your own logic anyway. The human demon took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He began to focus on refining the immortal ascension grass. Half a stalk, so be it. He could use this time to try to break the energy seal. As long as he could loosen the seal a little, the human demon's cultivation would most likely recover to the late-stage sage realm. Drip, drip. Time flew by quickly. On the second floor of the Ascension Pagoda, Ning Yu and the human demon were both focused on refining the immortal ascension grass. As time passed, the human demon's condition improved with every passing minute. Ning Yu and the human demon were not in a hurry. They knew very well that it would be very difficult to refine the remaining immortal ascension grass in a short period of time. The human demon was even prepared to take a long time to refine it. Of course, the condition was that the human demon's internal injuries had healed first. While Ning Yu was helping the human demon refine the immortal ascension grass, a cultivator tore through the void and came out of a forest not far from the Divine Emperor Palace. I'm so angry. If I don't get my revenge, I'm not a man. The cultivator clenched his fists and looked in the direction of the Divine Emperor Palace with a venomous expression. He Jiming. If Ning Yu was here, he would definitely recognize that this cultivator was none other than He Jiming, who had left not long ago. Originally, He Jiming had wanted to complete the second task given to him by the sect alone. However, he was unwilling to do so after some thought. When he had descended from a high-level plane, he had been majestic. He had brought a dozen early-stage sage cultivators with him, and had even used the sect's resources to push Di Shao, the palace master of the Divine Emperor Palace, to the sage realm. However, He Jiming was no longer fit to be majestic. Describing him as a stray dog was the best way to describe him. Who's there? Suddenly, He Jiming's expression changed. He hurriedly turned around and yelled at the void, "Why are you so sneaky? Get out here!" Hee, I didn't expect an expert from the Divine Emperor Palace to be reduced to such a state. How sad, how lamentable! A faint laugh came from the void. Crack! Following that, the void cracked and an old man in gray clothes slowly walked out of the void. After the gray-robed old man appeared, he did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. I want to make a deal with you. What kind of deal do you want to make? He Jiming's pupils shrank slightly when he felt the terrifying aura coming from the old man in gray. He said in a deep voice, "We don't know each other. There's no deal between us. You don't know me, but I know you." The old man in gray curled his lips and said, "A few days ago, you came to the Divine Emperor Palace from a high-level plane and quickly integrated the Divine Emperor Palace. Get to the point, I want to know who you are." Chapter 1745. Chapter 1745. Chapter 1745 Scapegoat. The reason why He Jiming didn't choose to attack the gray-robed elder wasn't because of the cooperation the gray-robed elder mentioned, but because of the powerful aura the gray-robed elder was emitting. Late-stage saint. The gray-robed elder's cultivation had reached the terrifying late-stage sage realm. He Jiming knew his place well when facing the gray-robed elder who was a late-stage sage. Unless he used his final trump card, he would not be a match for the gray-robed elder. Was he going to use his last trump card now? He Jiming wasn't that stupid. He Jiming took a deep breath and stared at the old man in gray as he said in a deep voice, "Even though your cultivation has reached the late saint realm, I'm not afraid of you." What's there to be afraid of? I've come here mainly to discuss the matter of cooperation with you. The gray-robed elder waved his hand. Just as he was about to say something, he saw He Jiming's furious expression and hurriedly changed his words. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Enhauping, and I'm from the En clan, one of the 9 war god clans of the demon spirit realm." Enhauping of the En clan of the 9 great war gods clans? He Jiming frowned slightly, his eyes flickering. He Jiming had investigated the immortal spirit realm in the higher planes. Because the demonic spirit realm and the immortal spirit realm were neighbors, He Jiming had some understanding of the demonic spirit realm. The devil spirit realm had a total of 9 war god clans, and every war god clan was filled with experts. He Jiming was quite a character. His focus wasn't Enhauping, but the devil spirit realms and clan, as well as the relationship between the En clan and the Zhang clan. Since Enhauping came over to cooperate with him, it was definitely not a small matter. Maybe it was inextricably linked to Zhang Chang. "My purpose for coming here is very simple." Seeing He Jiming frown, Enhauping knew that things could be expected. He said, "Let's attack the Emperor Palace together. I'll help you gain control of the Emperor Palace, and you help me kill Zhang Chang and Zhang Kejuan." Boom! When Enhauping's voice fell, He Jiming's heart immediately stirred up some waves. Although He Jiming had long guessed that Enhauping's arrival was related to Zhang Chang, he was still very excited when Enhauping admitted it. There was no other reason. With the help of Enhauping, a warrior at the late stage of the Saint Realm, it was not impossible to recapture the Emperor Palace. "You're a late-stage sage. You can wait until Zhang Chang and Zhang Kejuan come out of the Emperor Palace." Forcibly suppressing the excitement in his heart, He Jiming said solemnly. There was no free lunch in the world, and He Jiming was not a fool. Under normal circumstances, it would be easy for En Qianhao, a warrior at the late stage of Sage Realm, to kill Zhang Chang and Zhang Kejuan. There was absolutely no need to cooperate with him. Since Enhauping cooperated with him, it meant that he had value, or that there was something that Enhauping was interested in. Equivalent exchange was the basis of cooperation. If the two sides couldn't make an equivalent exchange, then the cooperation was destined to not last long. Enhauping's expression was solemn. He shook his head and said, "It's not that I haven't tried what you said, but the effect is minimal. Zhang Chang is a very scheming person. I attacked him once before and it was very unpleasant. It has aroused his suspicion, so, at this point, Anhauping paused for a moment and did not continue. Even if Anhauping did not say it, He Jiming had roughly figured out the situation. Anhauping was afraid of being discovered by Zhang Chong, so he did not dare to make a move. He wanted to use He Jiming to kill Zhang Chong and Zhang Kejuan. If it had been in the past, He Jiming would have been able to react. After all, Anhauping's explanation was full of loopholes. But now, He Jiming was blinded by hatred. He wanted to go back to the Emperor Palace and kill Ningyu, which led to Anhauping taking advantage of the loophole. This matter can't be rushed. I'll go and challenge them first. You hide in the void and don't do anything. Just follow my instructions. A ruthless look flashed across Anhauping's eyes, and then he said, You're seriously injured now. You'd better recuperate for 3 or 4 hours. We'll set off after you've recovered to your peak state. What are you afraid of? I'm fine. He Jiming patted his chest and said coldly, Let's set off now. I'm afraid that human demon will recover if we're a few steps late. In fact, not long after leaving the Emperor Palace, He Jiming had figured it out. Human demon could raise his cultivation to the peak late saint realm in such a short time. He must have taken some forbidden elixir. Generally speaking, those who took forbidden elixirs would end up in a miserable state. Backlash. Once the effect of the elixir wore off, the person who took it would definitely suffer a backlash. Previously, although He Jiming knew that human demon would suffer a backlash, he didn't dare to go back. After all, he wasn't absolutely sure. But now, with the addition of Anhauping, a late Saint Realm warrior, He Jiming felt a lot more confident. Now that he was confident, He Jiming wanted to go back as soon as possible. Ha! No wonder you're from a higher plane. Since you're fine, let's set off. Anhauping laughed. Then, he stomped on the ground and flew towards the Emperor Divine Palace. Humph! Seeing that Anhauping had left, He Jiming didn't stay for long. He also moved and disappeared behind Anhauping. Buzz! Not long after Anhauping and He Jiming disappeared, 2 figures appeared in the void. These 2 martial artists looked to be in their 40s or 50s from the outside. They were shrouded in a layer of faint white mist, making it impossible to see their cultivation. Anhauping's move is really good. Looking in the direction where Anhauping and He Jiming disappeared, one of the middle-aged men couldn't help but nod. The middle-aged man who spoke had a cold expression, giving off a feeling that strangers shouldn't get close to him. As for the other middle-aged man, he said with a smile, Anhauping is very calm. I'm afraid the clan sent him out because of this. With Anhauping taking action, I reckon that the Emperor Palace will be breached soon. We should also prepare early. The cold-looking man's expression was indifferent. No one could tell what he was thinking. Yes, we have to prepare, but not now. Smiling Tiger raised the corner of his mouth and said, Anhauping is a high-ranking member of the clan. If we can make him suffer a little, in the future, our 2 clans— Smiling Tiger did not continue, but the meaning behind his words was self-evident. Among the 9 war god clans in the demon spirit realm, each clan had mutual interests and conflict. To any clan, the loss of even a single Sage Realm warrior was a huge matter. This time, the 3 clans had joined hands to plot against the Zhang clan. Moreover, there was a war god candidate from the Zhang clan. If they succeeded, the benefits would be great. Of course, there were benefits and disadvantages. The disadvantage was that the Zhang clan would find out and choose to fight to the death. Obviously, Smiling Tiger had thought of this. However, Smiling Tiger wasn't particularly worried because he was already prepared. Scapegoat. Chapter 1746. Chapter 1746. Chapter 1746 Hope rises of course. Anhauping had no idea what Smiling Tiger and the stern man were thinking. At this moment, Anhauping and He Jiming had already arrived at Emperor City. The first thing He Jiming did was to find Sun Deshun. He Jiming, Zhang Chang, and 5 early-stage sage warriors came to find Sun Deshun and the human demon. The human demon and Ning Yu had lured them away, so He Jiming couldn't find them. However, He Jiming couldn't even find Sun Deshun. In fact, it wasn't difficult for He Jiming to find Sun Deshun with his cultivation. The key was that He Jiming's main targets were the human demon and Ning Yu, which gave Sun Deshun a chance to escape. Now he was back and he brought an Haoping who was a late-stage sage with him. In addition, He Jiming wanted to test an Haoping's strength, so he asked an Haoping to look for Sun Deshun. "Don't worry, give me 10 minutes. The little scheme in He Jiming's heart, an Haoping was naturally crystal clear. However, he wouldn't point it out even if he knew. He could take advantage of this opportunity to show He Jiming his strength and lay a good foundation for his future actions. Swoosh! With a swift movement, an Haoping blended into the void and disappeared without a trace. He Jiming didn't doubt that an Haoping could find Sun Deshun. If an Haoping couldn't even find Sun Deshun, there would be no need for them to cooperate. What He Jiming needed to do now was to find the sages of the Zhang family. On the way to Emperor City, He Jiming casually mentioned that there were a few sages of the Zhang family in Emperor City and hinted that he would help an Haoping get rid of them. An Haoping had no reason to refuse He Jiming's offer. It might take some time to find Sun Deshun, but it wouldn't take He Jiming much time to find a few early-stage sage warriors. 5 minutes. In just 5 minutes, He Jiming found 4 early-stage sage warriors hiding in the surroundings. Without a doubt, these 4 hidden sages were all from the Zhang family of the demonic spirit realm. He Jiming didn't leave the Zhang family any face. He punched 4 times in a row. Bang, 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 bang. Every punch landed on the heart of a saint martial artist. 4 punches, 4 crisp sounds. 4 warriors at the early stage of the sage realm. The result was predictable. No shinobi could survive the wrath of He Jiming. In addition to the 5 minutes he had spent looking for people, He Jiming had used a total of 7 minutes to kill 4 initial stage sage realm warriors. Who? After killing 4 early stage sage realm warriors, He Jiming slowly exhaled a mouthful of foul air. To be honest, He Jiming was under a lot of pressure after killing 4 sage early-stage warriors at once. Fortunately, these 4 saint martial artists were rather stupid and did not resist with all their might. Otherwise, if the 4 of them joined forces, it would be enough to make He Jiming suffer. What is an Haoping doing here? Casually kicking the 4 sages to the side, He Jiming frowned slightly and muttered, "Demonic spirit realm and family, demonic spirit realm Zhang family." The more He Jiming thought about it, the more he felt that things were not that simple. He Jiming wouldn't think too much when he was angry. Now that he had enough time and his anger had calmed down, he definitely had to think about it more. Bang! At this moment, the void suddenly split open, and a figure flew out from the void. The sound of a body hitting the ground was heard. Great, as expected of an expert from the demonic spirit realm and family. Looking at Sun Deshun, who was half kneeling in front of him, He Jiming nodded at an Haoping and said, "Wait for me for a moment. After I get rid of this traitor, I'll immediately kill my way to the Divine Emperor Palace." Although he didn't quite agree with He Jiming's approach, thinking that he still had to ask He Jiming for help, an Haoping had no choice but to say, "Don't take too long. I'm afraid that things will change if we delay." "No problem, leave it to me." He Jiming patted his chest and guaranteed. Obviously, he didn't take human demon, Ning Yu and the others seriously. And Haoping frowned slightly and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he shook his head gently. "I hope I'm wrong. Logically speaking, He Jiming shouldn't have noticed anything at this time." On the other side, He Jiming stepped on Sun Deshun's chest and said coldly, "I've treated you well. Why did you betray me? I only have myself to blame for ending up like this. If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. Sun Deshun braced himself and said, "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" He Jiming said in a deep voice. "Even if you don't kill me, I'll kill myself soon." Sun Deshun gritted his teeth and said, "I'm already under human demon's control. As long as human demon wills it, I'll die without a burial place. In addition, the control of my body doesn't belong to me. It belongs to human demon. You can say that if human demon wants me to go west, I'll definitely not go east. If human demon wants me to die at midnight, I'll definitely not live past midnight." Hearing Sun Deshun's words, He Jiming frowned and vaguely felt that something was wrong. If things were really like what Sun Deshun said, didn't that mean that human demon also knew what Sun Deshun was saying now? He Jiming wasn't particularly worried that human demon knew what Sun Deshun said. The only thing He Jiming was worried about was that human demon knew about Anhaoping's existence. Anhaoping was their biggest weapon, the key to whether they could regain control of Emperor Divine Palace and kill human demon. If Anhaoping was exposed, it meant that their plan this time would fall short of success. The more He Jiming thought about it, the uglier his face became. In the end, He Jiming even had the urge to slap Sun Deshun to death. However, He Jiming restrained his inner thoughts. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Since human demon has control of your body, then let me ask you, do you know about human demon's current situation?" Human demon's current situation? Sun Deshun frowned, not knowing what He Jiming meant. Seeing Sun Deshun's frown, He Jiming said coldly, "In other words, can you contact human demon?" "I'll try." Sun Deshun gritted his teeth, then closed his eyes and began to contact human demon. What? As time passed, Sun Deshun's entire person was shocked to the extreme. What's going on? Sun Deshun's action made He Jiming's heart skip a beat. Sun Deshun opened his mouth slightly and said, "My control of body seems to have nothing to do with human demon." Nothing to do with human demon? He Jiming was overjoyed. If Sun Deshun had nothing to do with human demon, it meant that Anhaoping would not be exposed. If Anhaoping was not exposed, He Jiming was confident that he could break into Emperor Divine Palace and kill human demon. Well, although I have nothing to do with human demon, I seem to have some kind of connection with Ningyu. Chapter 1747. Chapter 1747. Chapter 1747 To do something identical? Hearing Sun Deshun's words, He Jiming was slightly stunned at first, and then his expression changed. He said in a low voice, "You mean to say that you're now under Ningyu's control?" "That's possible." Sun Deshun looked up at the angry He Jiming and whispered, "But I can be sure that Ningyu doesn't know what happened here." Sun Deshun was no fool. Ever since he knew that human demon had transferred control of him to Ningyu, his mind became active. Sun Deshun never thought of begging He Jiming for mercy when he was under the control of the human demon. Sun Deshun knew very well that even if he begged for mercy, He Jiming would not let him go. He would definitely kill him in the end. But things were different now. The connection between him and Ningyu was much weaker than it had been with the human devil. Sun Deshun was certain that Ningyu was busy with something, or that he was under some kind of interference or restraint and did not have the time to care about him. In this case, as long as He Jiming and the late-stage Saint martial artist next to him were willing to help, there was a great possibility that he could escape from Ningyu's control. The more Sun Deshun thought about it, the more likely it was. Taking a deep breath, Sun Deshun said to He Jiming, "Right now, Ningyu doesn't know what happened here, but if it drags on, I'm afraid something will happen." "Do you think?" Sun Deshun didn't continue. Even if Sun Deshun didn't say it, He Jiming's heart was clear. After thinking about it, He Jiming said, "Relax your mind. Anhaoping and I will examine you first." "Thank you, Elder." Sun Deshun's face lit up, and he hurriedly relaxed his mind. "Anhaoping, do me a favor," He Jiming said to Anhaoping. Then, his perception surged out and entered Sun Deshun's body. Seeing He Jiming's actions, An Haoping rolled his eyes. An Haoping didn't agree with He Jiming's actions at all. If this happened to An Haoping would definitely kill Sun Deshun. He would never leave an uncertain factor like Sun Deshun alive. However, An Haoping still had some self-awareness. He needed He Jiming's help, and Sun Deshun was very important to He Jiming. It was unwise to offend He Jiming at this time. Xiao. With a thought, An Haoping released his perception power and quickly entered Sun Deshun's body. Not good. Just as An Haoping and He Jiming's perception entered Sun Deshun's body, Ning Yu's expression changed drastically. Sun Deshun's body was suddenly invaded by two powerful senses, which naturally couldn't be hidden from Ning Yu. Although Ning Yu was busy helping the human devil refine the immortal ascension grass, so Sun Deshun was not very clear about what was going on. However, how could Sun Deshun's body be hidden from Ning Yu when two powerful senses suddenly entered his body? Puchi. However, just as Ning Yu was about to respond, he felt a sweetness in his throat and suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. What's going on? After this period of rest, although there was still a lot of the immortal ascension grass left, the human devil's mental state had improved a lot. Seeing Ning Yu spit out blood, the human devil immediately realized the severity of the problem. He hurriedly asked, "Did you consume too much energy refining the immortal ascension grass? If that's the case, you should go rest first. I'll handle the rest myself. It has nothing to do with the immortal ascension grass. My body is very good. Even if I refine it for a few more hours, there won't be a problem." Ning Yu shook his head and said solemnly, "I've lost contact with Sun Deshun." Lost contact with Sun Deshun? Even though the human devil had guessed that things weren't that simple, his expression still turned ugly when he heard Ning Yu's words. Sun Deshun was originally under his control, but not long ago, he had transferred control of Sun Deshun and the rest to Ning Yu. From start to finish, only 2 hours had passed, and Sun Deshun had lost contact with Ning Yu. A slap in the face. This matter wasn't just a slap to Ning Yu's face, it was a slap to the human devil's face. The human devil's temper had always been violent. At this moment, his expression became even more ferocious. He said angrily, "Is it He Jiming?" "One of them is He Jiming, but I'm not too sure about the other." Ning Yu frowned slightly. The two senses that helped Sun Deshun, one is a mid-stage sage, and the other is a late-stage sage. The mid-stage sage is definitely He Jiming. As for the late-stage sage, I still don't know who it is. If it was just He Jiming alone, it would be fine. But now, there was a late-stage sage whose strength was above He Jiming's. How could Ning Yu not be shocked? While Ning Yu was shocked, so was the human devil. However, at the same time, the human devil considered another level. The other half of the immortal ascension grass hadn't been completely refined yet. At this time, the strength that the human devil could display was at most that of an early-stage sage. Even He Jiming couldn't defeat an early-stage sage human devil, let alone a late-stage sage. Contact Di Xiao and ask him to find a way to activate the Palace Protection Formation. Taking a deep breath, the human devil said, "In addition, ask Zhang Chang and Little Kailan to guard the Palace Protection Formation. The situation may be more complicated." Ning Yu shook his head again and said, "The Palace Protection Formation of Emperor Palace can't be activated for a second time in a short time. Zhang Chang and Little Kailan are definitely no match for He Jiming and the other late-stage sage. Even so, we can't just sit here and wait for death. If it doesn't work, I'll take a few of them down with me even if I have to risk the energy seal and the backlash." The human devil showed a determined look. Whether it was Zhang Chang or Little Kailan, their strength was not particularly strong. It might be no problem for them to fight against He Jiming, who was at the mid-stage sage, but they would definitely lose against a late-stage sage. This was not a child's game. If they failed, they would lose their lives. The human devil was ready. Instead of letting Zhang Chang and little Kylan die in vain, he might as well risk his life again. At most, he would just die. How about this? I'll ask Di Shao to take the remaining sages to Emperor City to stall He Jiming, while you and I go to the first level of the Tower of Transcendence. Ning Yu did not wait for the human devil to stop him, and immediately gave the order. Since Di Shao and the others were under Ning Yu's control, Ning Yu passed down the order almost instantly. Whoosh! Di Shao did not dare to delay and hurriedly led all the sages to Emperor City to stop He Jiming. As for Ning Yu and the human devil, they went to the first level of the Tower of Transcendence. How dare you come back? On the first level of the Tower of Transcendence, the white-haired old man was fighting with Zhang Chang and little Kylan when he suddenly saw Ning Yu and the human devil tearing through the void. His face immediately became ferocious and he said fiercely, "You stole my ascending immortal grass, I want you to pay with your lives." Pay with my life? If you want the ascending immortal grass, I can give it back to you. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.